Welcome back. I am here with Jack Connor from Cosmic Road. I can see the terror in Jack Connor's eyes because I'm just driving this bus into God knows where. So let's see. We already got 6 people on. All right. So what we are doing today is we're going to be focused on Disclosure 2023 or lack thereof.
Disclosure. Small d.
So yeah, well, or negative d.
Negative d. Yeah. I was thinking negative d too. Yeah.
Inverse d or whatever.
Inverse d.
Because, no, Jack, do we have enough data? Do we have enough data to data?
I think we need to recalibrate the sensors, Sean. I don't think the sensors are quite calibrated.
Well, what about the haystack? There's a lot of hay in the haystack,
yes.
Right? At least Ming the Merciless says that. Right. Ming the Merciless.
I love Ming. Yeah. What does he say about the haystack?
It's like finding a needle.
It's like finding It's like finding a needle in the haystack. That's right. Well, it makes perfect sense because most of it is hay. Most of the UAP sightings are hay, including the ones you already know about that are real. Those are also hay. You know, all the needles you thought were real, like the Go Fast or the Flying Pyramid. Well, they're all hay too, because, nothing's real. It's all Chinese drones or something.
I love how they set it up perfectly, right? They had like 3 legitimate Chinese balloons and they're like, let's call them UAPs. Yeah. They're UAPs. There's so many UAPs in the sky. So now they're conflating balloons with anomalous phenomena. Right.
Right. So well, you have to wonder how much of that was deliberate. Did they?
I don't wonder.
You're right. I don't
wonder.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're like, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was. Could have been a balloon. Could have been. I don't know. But it was a UAP. But it was a balloon.
But could they have launched the balloons with this in mind to discredit the UFO UAP? Is that a stretch? I mean,
it's possible, but it's not probable, in my opinion.
That's where my mind goes. They will stop at nothing to debunk and to demystify this topic.
Well, it's obvious to me. So when I interviewed Steve Bassett, right, like I got all hyped up and pumped up and all that good stuff, and it's clear that the order's gone down because there's when the order is like just do a dog and pony show and then just let this go. So they had like a pre-bunk at NASA, right, where they got this, they got Lurch stood up and he's just like, here is my triangle. And it looks like at 13,000 feet, this thing's moving at 40. So what? UFOs can't move at 40 knots? Like,
right?
What at 13,000 feet? Is that a seagull? Can a seagull breathe at 13,000 feet? Like, it's just misdirection. It's just like, let me show you something that looks like it's simple, but it's not simple because it's not exactly a triangle. It's got a curve. It's just like, all right. Anyway, I'm trying to.
Yeah. Well, also, that is their calculations. All right. Now, you would think that we should be able to trust NASA's calculations, right? But other people, for example, on an episode of Unidentified with Lou Elizondo, where they took a look at the Go Fast video, I think that they calculated it as going something like 3/4 of the speed of sound. Uh, you know, that's not 40 miles an hour. So were maybe they overselling it because it was a UFO show? Maybe. I mean, I'm not opposed to that idea. I mean, you got to sensationalize it a little bit, but that's a big discrepancy. And do I trust this guy at NASA, or I think he was brought in to speak there? I think he was a professor or somebody from Oxford. I forget, from some university,
which is
somewhere.
perfect, because
Yeah.
that's even worse, because he wouldn't have access to TSSCI data.
Right.
Because I guarantee you the sensor data that the Navy has can tell you exactly how fast that thing flew.
Right.
You don't need to draw an isosceles triangle and like angles and this and that and bring in a professor who does not have clearance to see that data.
Well, those pilots were so excited when they locked onto it. I mean, they had been seeing these things for days or years, and
Graves said he saw them every day.
Right. Their whole squadron was seeing them every day.
And by the way, the ones that they saw on the Atlantic coast are the same, or at least I think Chris Bledsoe saw that kind of pill shaped, tic tac shaped. He said 46 feet, right? So same thing.
They've been seeing those Tic Tacs for a long time. I think back in the 50s, I think it was the 50s, there was a case where they saw something that looked like a butane tank, which is, the same,
like
same kind of thing. Yeah. Right.
Pill shaped. We're not pill shaped, but like, lozenge shaped. They call them lozenge shaped sometimes. Same thing.
Yeah, well, there was a really prominent UFO researcher, Wendell Stevens, I believe, who talked about the Foo Fighters, and he examined the Foo Fighter phenomenon in World War II. And I had kind of thought all the Foo Fighters were just like luminous, balls of, fire, right? Or, little white lights, the typical UFO kind of thing. But actually, according to Wendell Stevens' research, a lot of the Foo Fighters exhibited the same range of shapes that we see today. There were triangles, there were cigar shapes. I don't know about Tic Tacs, but there were all sorts of different shapes that they were seeing, in addition to the orb shapes and other stuff. So it's interesting because a lot of people think this is an evolving phenomenon that changes over time, and it may very well be. I think there's a good case to be made for that. But there does seem to be some commonalities and some what's the word? Persistence? No,
consistency.
Same thing. Consistency. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm a writer, but I need help. That's what the source is for. Yeah. But yeah, there's consistency over time as well as this changing anomalous feature to the phenomenon.
I think we need to get Mick West on this case, because I'm sure he can conclusively show that they were flares at 13,000 feet. I think that's the case.
Probably. I mean, that would make sense. That would make sense. If Mick said it, I would believe it, because he is the guru of all this.
Well, yeah, I'm trying not to go on another.
It's seagulls for everybody.
Yeah, they're all seagulls. Oh, so how
or flares.
How are we doing on? We got comments.
Okay. I can't. Okay, let me go to that.
No, I'll just flash them up here.
Okay. Oh, hey.
Well, you should do it on both. Like, watch part of it on mine, watch part of it on Jack's page, or you can go back at the end.
Is that Troy?
I don't know. All right, here's the next one. Knox Twilight, good to see you. I think they think they're fooling the average American, and it's working. Yeah. Yeah, anybody, this is true in every realm of life. When somebody talks about their commitment to transparency without you asking them a question about whether or not you're going to be transparent, they're not going to be transparent. They're going to be the opposite transparent, always.
It's like the car salesman saying he's honest.
Yeah, exactly. It's called projection. They project what they think their weaknesses are. Let's see. Irwin, I haven't seen Irwin before. Irwin must be A cosmic roadie. There you go. Cosmic roadie.
When it came to trusting Arrow, NASA, and any other government-related entity, but they have crushed any semblance of credibility. Yeah, man, they really have.
This is actually a huge point, and I got to be careful how I say this because I don't want to get anybody into trouble. But right now, trust in government institutions is probably at an all-time low, and this is the one opportunity that our government has to. I mean, look, they are like our government's on shaky ground, and the more that they kind of do this stuff, the more they lose their credibility, and it's just playing into that narrative. It's not great. It's not good.
No.
I know the answer to that question because I just talked to one. So it hasn't aired yet, but I interviewed Robert Salas earlier this week, and the first interview I did, I just wanted to get for the record, I interviewed him like Arrow should have interviewed him. So what he saw was he was in charge of 10 Minuteman missiles with, each one had a 400 kiloton throw weight, which is about 20 times the explosive power of Hiroshima, the bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And he had 10 of them. And there was a phenomena, red. And I asked him if it was just a red light or if they saw a shape, and they described it as an ovoid shape. And what this thing did is it simultaneously shut down all 10 of the nuclear. Specifically, what it shut down was the inertial guidance system logic, right? So the missiles were still, would still work, but you couldn't. If you launched them, they would just like go on a ballistic trajectory. They wouldn't like guide them to their targets. Which, I asked him what the targets were, and he wouldn't tell me. So,
yeah, that would be nice. Yeah,
it was a completely unnecessary question.
But that wasn't an isolated event. I did a video on Robert Salas, but there were also several other U.S. nuclear facilities, missile silos that were targeted and hit. And there was one technician that was one of the whistleblowers that have come forward. I don't know if technician is the proper title, but he would go out and repeatedly have to turn on these nukes after they had been shut off by the UFOs. He did that multiple times. I mean, can you imagine that being just a part of your job is to go out and reactivate the nukes that have been shut off by UFOs? I mean, that's crazy.
Well, they did an analysis. They did an analysis, and it literally targeted the logic circuit. What had to happen is it wasn't quite an EM pulse, but it was an electromagnetic signal that had to match exactly a set of certain conditions, and it had to go 60 feet underground in order for it to happen. Right. But no UFOs. We have nothing out there. Nothing out there. They shut down 30 Minuteman missiles. So there were 10 in Echo flight, which was like the day before or sometime before. They shut 10 down at Oscar flight, which was Salas's flight. And then they shut down one at Minot Air Force Base, kind of the same time period. And then there was another sightings, I think, in Great Falls, Montana, where there was a truck driver, and this UFO started shadowing the truck driver, like just driving along, like right next to him. And then so he stopped, went to the side of the road, and then it lowered itself into a depression and waited. He called the police somehow. I don't know how that happened because they didn't have cell phones back then, but he somehow called the police, and they came in and they watched this thing like slowly hover up and then left. Like it wanted them to see it. Right. The other thing that's important is during this period, the U.S. government was doing the same BS they're doing right now. They were going through they were in the middle of the Condon report. So the UFOs were like, hey, we're going right in. Really? We don't exist. Here we go. We're going to shut down a few nukes. Right. And that's like, and anyway, that was what was going on in terms of the context.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, that'd be really interesting to compare UFO events that are going on. Well, let's see if we can get, Wednesday, there was the NASA meeting. I wonder if there was a spike in UFO activity that day, or if there were some
I
particularly.
shouldn't be I shouldn't be showing the Otzi word. Sorry.
What was the oxy? I didn't see the oxy. Let's not forget NASA was literally run by
Don't
Nazis for a
say
long time. That's right. They were.
it. Don't say it. Don't say the Otzi word.
That's the oxy word. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
That's a good
there was
question.
the World War II Germans. I think
The
that's safe to
Germans.
say.
The Germans.
Hey, Jack, what percentage of the public do you think is paying close attention to the UFO disclosure topic as we are? And what percentage of the public do you think doesn't really care much about it? Oh, my God. Well, I think the percentage of people that know about it and care about it is growing. I was one of the uninitiated prior to 2017. I didn't think any of this was real. And then 2017 happened. Thank you, Lou and Chris. Rocked my world. Really went through a process there. Luckily, I don't have a day job. I'm a writer, and I was able to devote all my free time, which was considerable, into investigating this topic. And I think there's a lot of people out there doing the same thing right now.
Oh, by the way,
what that percentage is, I don't know. That's a good question.
quickly back to the Salas story. Salas story. So I did the first interview on the details. The second interview was about what, like, kind of similar to what he did on the Good Trouble show, right, where he played the tape, and these guys just weren't completely uninterested, right? Like they were just responding to a congressional inquiry. That's what this is all about. That's it.
Okay, so Robert Salas, all right, we know that he has given his testimony to Arrow and Kirkpatrick. We've even got the audio recording of a little bit of that. That Robert released last week. And I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to that, but basically he's asking if Arrow has followed up with the Air Force on what he said. And they're saying, no, we asked them for some stuff before and they never responded. So, we're not really going to ask him anything. But thanks for the suggestion. Or just something to that effect. I mean, it was just really brushing him off. And clearly they weren't trying to get to any answers. In fairness, the Air Force is not that forthcoming.
However, one thing was super weird about it. So the one thing that they did say, like, terrible OPSEC on their part, by the way, they said when he asked that question, they were like, well, yeah, we haven't really gotten anything. We also haven't been able to get the U2 footage or the Atlas 5 footage, whatever, right? So we all know about the Atlas 5. I think it's Atlas 5. I don't get the number right. But the was it Bill Jacobs, something like that? I'm getting his name wrong probably, but where you had they did an inert missile test and you had the UFO from three different angles shut it down.
Yeah.
So, but the one thing the U2 footage, what's that all about?
Yeah, I
Right,
would
because
love to
U2's
know.
a spy plane, right? That doesn't mean, because the Atlas incident had nothing to do with Malmstrom, right?
Right.
Or might not, but so there's probably tons of footage with U2s. By the way, NASA has tons of footage from satellites.
Of course.
No, I know. I know for a fact that they do.
Yeah. Well, of course they do. I mean, even the stuff that is publicly available. I mean, there's several NASA satellite videos that have gone on YouTube that I believe are legit, that clearly show objects moving in space that shouldn't be there. There's one that shows an object coming out of the moon that seems to be a legit video. You can't see anything but a little round object coming out of the moon, but it's it's compelling, and it's why aren't they showing that with the rest of it?
Hawaii question.
Aloha from Hawaii. With the nukes issue being turned on and off, what do you believe the phenomena were intending to communicate? Well, okay, so there's an interesting thing that happened in Russia around the same time in the 60s.
1982, October, Ukraine.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the question. And in that case, the UFOs, instead of turning off the nukes, they activated the nukes. They initiated a countdown to nukes that were presumably aimed mostly at the United States, freaking the hell out of all the Russians that were there. And obviously, at the last minute, the UFOs turned off the countdown. So people have asked, well, why this separate response? Why turn off our nukes and turn on their nukes? And a theory has been proposed. It's not mine, but I'll tell it to you. Is that because our attitudes about nukes were opposite, us and the Soviets. They had a very aggressive stance with the nukes, and they were going to fire first. We had a more defensive, only fire as a last resort kind of stance. And so the pilots of the UFOs may have been trying to send a message. Well, this is your greatest fear, right? You're defensive. If you strike second, well, what happens then, right? So we're going to shut off your nukes to give you that sense of helplessness. And for the Soviets, we'll highlight what it is to be super aggressive and to show the catastrophe that could happen from that stance. So, and that makes sense to me. And it's sending the same kind of anti-nuke message both ways. So, I don't know if that's the reason or not, but I tend to think that's something to that.
Yeah, I think it's just two messages. One, we can do whatever we want at any time, right? And then number two, these things, you're playing with fire, and see how easy it was for us to disable them or turn them on. You see how dangerous these things are. You need to reconsider getting rid of these things. And I think it's more of a pedagogical response than anything else. They're just trying to teach, but who knows?
They do seem very concerned about our nukes and our use of nuclear weapons and nuclear energy. They show up at nuclear power plants. So some people think they're drawing energy or feeding off the energy. I don't think that's it. I think they're letting themselves be known and maybe monitoring to make sure we're not doing anything wrong, which, if true, is weird because they haven't intervened in any of our nuclear disasters. Possibly they've prevented some that we don't know about. But, where were they? Where were they at Fukushima? That's the name, right?
Yeah, there's rumors that was I'm not gonna.
Oh, okay. I got some. Okay.
No, I don't want to. I can't.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll just explain the story where it came from, and you can choose to believe it or not. So Lynn Buchanan speaks fluent Russian, right? Because he's a military intelligence guy, so they learn different languages. So I think he speaks fluent Russian and German. So he watches Russian TV, and he said back around Fukushima there was a Russian scientist who got a little toasted on TV. He's a little sauced, okay? And he said that Fukushima was like a earthquake weapon test by the Russians. Now they do have a weapon called Poseidon now. I don't know if it's operational or not, but it's a nuclear weapon that like a torpedo that travels extremely fast. But what you do is you detonate that off the continental shelf, and it can cause tsunamis and tidal waves, earthquakes, things like that. So I don't know if that's true. I don't think the Russians would test it on another sovereign country, but that's crazier things have happened. I mean,
I guess we
had a pandemic caused by a virus leaked from a Chinese lab that EcoHealth was contracted by the NIH to fund, but who knows? Crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how to respond to this one, but yeah, well, you know what? I'm flares.
It's all flares. It's all flares. Or
flares.
Are you sure it wasn't a seagull? No, I don't mean to mock you. I mean, just me. I have friends that have seen these things. I mean, I've seen one myself. It wasn't directly overhead. It wasn't super close range, but it was a very weird sighting. Coincided with some other stuff, and that sounds like an amazing event. I would be curious to know if you've had any other events.
Yeah,
Often
and to be
people that
clear, I'm
will.
not disparaging the account. I'm
Oh,
making
I
fun of
wasn't
the.
saying you were. Yeah, you're just,
No, I know. I'm talking to
you're,
just me. I want to make sure.
you're disparaging Mick West, which I fully support. Yeah.
No, look, Mick West. I think Mick West is valuable in the sense that we need people to focus on this stuff and debunk. But I'm just gonna make fun of him when he comes up with a bad alternative. Like well, anyway, we'll get into flares a little bit later because I'm gonna go on a rant about it. But okay, let's go to the next one. Was there a report that came out, or are you talking? You think he's talking about the press conference?
I think he's talking about the press conference. I think there is supposed to be a report forthcoming, but I don't think that has dropped yet.
In the Army, we would call it a goat rope.
What is it? What is a goat rope?
Just imagine what. I mean, it's not good. It's like a goat rope, like a cluster. You know, it's a goat rope.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That. Okay. Yeah. That was.
Yeah, I would say the other one. I would say the other one.
That was a nice visual. Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I'll go on a rant on that. I kind of went on a rant on the pre. I mean, it's just a pre-bunking, right?
Right.
Right. And it's just the thing that I can't stand about NASA. At least, look, I have friends who work at NASA, and I think they're awesome people. But none of those friends were on that panel, so I feel free to be weapons free on this in terms of like what I say, because these people did not impress me, because it was just like, hey, did you did you pinch a loaf today? Oh, I don't know. I didn't have enough data. I didn't have the data. Well, did you like drive to work today? Let me check my odometer and let me data. I was just like, come on, guys. Have you ever been in the freaking field? Have you ever been in like the desert with like sand up your like rear end? Just like you smell like a goat and you're like tired and you're getting sand in the radio and your weapons jammed and stuff like that. You don't have a highly you don't have a highly calibrated system that is 100% clean in like 100% lab conditions. These pilots are flying at Mach speeds. They're highly trained. There's ocean water, seawater into everything, and they have extremely high fidelity sensors and things like that. Like, come on. Like, I'm not buying it.
Right.
Like,
right.
I mean, in this country, you can convict somebody with 2 hookers and a hobo, and they need data. I mean, come on, guys. And anyway, all right, sorry, ran over.
No, man, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They claim to be so data driven, right? But did they ask a single question about Robert Salas? Did they ask Kirkpatrick about any of the whistleblowers that have come forward? And they claim to want evidence. They claim to want data. But there's witnesses right there that have seen a UFO shutting off nukes. I mean, come on. But
Jack, the sensors aren't calibrated. The human eye, that sensor is not calibrated properly.
Oh man, if I had taken a shot every time they had said they needed to calibrate their sensors or they needed more data, we were talking about that before. We would both be dead or still drunk.
I think we all need to pray that like some grays show up in these people's homes and give them record probes, and then we'll see how much data they need for that. All right,
right.
So nuclear fuel, I mean, you could speculate forever on, but they do show up around. So the NIMS obviously has a nuclear power plant on board, right? So that's one example. They tend to show up around these nuclear power sources and or nuclear weapons, or actually it's usually nuclear weapons or military with using nuclear in some sense.
Yeah, they are fascinated by our nukes, or they are concerned about our nukes, one way or the other. There's a consistent message saying that we need to not have nuclear power or not have nuclear weapons. And that is something repeated over and over again. I mean, even going back to the supposed Eisenhower meeting, I don't know how much of that is true, if any of it, but, the message, one of the main narratives there was that he met with 3 races. One of them was an enlightened race that wanted to help us in very more enlightened ways, I guess. but they wanted us to stop using nukes and nuclear energy. I think it was also nuclear energy, but it was certainly to disarm with nuclear weapons. And he said, no, I mean, they just helped us, defeat Japan. We're certainly not going to get rid of our nukes. And anybody that wants to try to disarm us has got to be an enemy, right? So, screw you guys. And then the Greys came along and said, hey, we're going to give you some technology, but, we need a certain number of cattle mutilations and abductions every year. And the story is that he said, well, okay, but you have to give us the names of the people you're abducting, and you can only take so many. That's this. I'm not saying that's 100% what happened, but that is one of the main narratives out there. And
do you have data? Do you have data? Do you have a tape recording of that is authenticated? And do you have a video, 4K video? I mean, they're talking about getting 4K video. They even have this. I mean, they have satellites in space that can read, like, could see a pimple on your rear end. Right? And like, look at the bacteria crawling all over it. And they need more data. Come on. Like, do they think we're stupid? They obviously do.
Well, Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo basically had to smuggle those 3 videos out of the Pentagon. I mean, they did it in a legal way, but a very sneaky way, from what I understand. And
well, that's how Salas was able to disclose his stuff. He did the same thing. He didn't say anything about UFOs in his FOIA requests. Like, he just said, like, this incident, whatever. And they're like, yeah, I guess it seems okay. So,
yeah, that's how I understand that Lou was able to get those videos out, was to get them unclassified for inter-office sharing. And he didn't say they were UFOs; they were just, could be drones or whatever. And then once they were unclassified, he was able to get them out to Chris or whoever, and get them to TTSA, who released them. So that's my understanding of how they got released. But it was a legal way, but a very sneaky way. And so we know that let's say those are legit UFO cases, right? I believe they are, firmly believe they are, no matter whatever his name says at the NASA briefing said about the Go Fast. I believe that was a real case. But from what Lou has said, they are sitting on a mountain of videos. He smuggled those 3 videos out because they were probably the easiest 3 to get. Just imagine the ones that he couldn't pretend were not UFOs. He got those out because he could pretend those weren't UFOs.
Well, not even that. Like, Gary Nolan, who was a professor at Stanford Medical School, he has metamaterials that he's analyzed in his labs, right? And it has shown that there's no way that materials could have been made on Earth. So, like, it's just... So here's what I think is going to happen. So, like I said, when I interviewed Chris Bledsoe, he said disclosure's happening, whether or not the government likes it or not. So I think you're going to see a lot of either mass sightings, or people are going to have, there might be something showing up in your bedroom at night that you're not expecting, right? It could be, because it could be tumultuous, or it could just be they show up to a few people. It could be... but if you go to his Instagram account, you can see clear pictures of orbs and stabilized footage. The other thing too is the Pentagon, Homeland Security, CIA, NASA. They've all been at his house for like 10 years, like trying to keep him quiet, and and they had leverage. I'll tell you afterward what that leverage was, Jack. But I don't. Okay, it's in the public domain, but you have to know what to look for.
I am so pumped for his TV show or whatever he's got coming up.
I'll tell you what it is. I think it is. He by the way, he didn't say a word. So whatever. So there's a show coming out called Beyond Skinwalker.
Okay, and yeah.
Based on like what he shared on his Instagram, and he keeps talking about it and things like that, I think it's Beyond Skinwalker. I don't know for sure, but I think it's Beyond Skinwalker.
Yeah.
And I know somebody else. I interviewed somebody else who's going to be on it too. So
I love it. Bring it, Chris. If Sean Kirkpatrick won't release the ATIP videos, and we know he's got the ATIP videos, then it may be up to Chris Bledsoe to release some real UFO videos. And although, I mean, I don't like Stephen Greer, but he does have this thing coming up in June where he says he is going to release multiple terabytes of UFO information, presumably including videos. So, could we get something juicy coming from Stephen Greer? It would annoy me so much if he was responsible for UFO disclosure. I would have a conniption fit if he was the one that did it. But man, if he does it, then, shit, why not, right? Hats off to him.
Here's the one thing about him, though, that like I think he's done some really good things, but the one thing that made me kind of go, oh, come on, where he said that the head of Army intelligence brought him into a hotel room, right? First of all, that's like a 2 or 3 star general. 2 or 3 star general is not going to be involved in an op. Sorry, not going to happen. And then number 2, if they want to keep you quiet, they're not going to offer you $2 billion, right? They're just going to make, like, that's what, 2.5%? Is that right? No, like 0.25% of the U.S. defense budget to keep quiet. No, you just go down to like, just hire somebody from MS-13 to make them disappear for like $10,000.
Right. You would have a bicycle accident and that would be the end of the story.
Yeah. So that's where I'm
just disappear.
Like,
or just disappear. Yeah. Hey, Christian.
You just.
But Stephen Greer, he has done some good. He really has, and I think there could be an argument that he's done more good than bad. I think that CE5. Oh, and what does Martin say? Luis Elizondo seems to think that NASA Aero report was an attempt to divert our attention. Basically, they were the last throws of the control group trying to gain an edge. Yeah, I've got a video coming up on that tomorrow.
It's classic misdirection, right? It was the same thing we were talking about with the Triangle Man, Lurch, right? Where he's, trying to explain. And it's just like, okay, well, what was flying at 13,000 feet? You still haven't answered that question. I don't care how fast it was going.
Right, yeah.
Right? What is saying anomalous objects can't fire at 40, yeah, exactly. But
yeah. Well, what's going 40 miles an hour at that speed? I mean, I don't care if it's going 2 miles an hour. What's it doing? There are no wings or no visible exhaust. Come on.
But that's what they do. They just pick one thing that they can come up with an explanation, and then they use the logic that if that's wrong, everything's wrong, right? That's the technique.
But about Stephen Greer, I mean, he denies that there are such a thing as alien abductions, because he's what I call an alien apologist, and he's very pro-alien, very pro-phenomenon. And I don't mean to be negative about the phenomenon, but I try to be realistic. And there are abductions. There's many, many, many abductions. There's countless abductions. And he says it's all the military. Well, okay, there was a Roper poll done in the 90s by Bud Hopkins, John Mack, and David Jacobs that showed that, according to the results of the poll, that 2% of the respondents, and it was a very large respondents, the Roper poll, 2% were alien abductees. Yeah, they didn't know what the questions were going to indicate. So they weren't asked, are you an alien abductee? But they were asked a series of questions, and those results seem to indicate that they were. And David Jacobs, who is now an old man, has said that they actually had to whittle those numbers down. They just had to arbitrarily shave off a bunch of responses because they didn't want to alarm people, but the true number was closer to 5%. And that is a global number. There's been shown that abductions happen throughout the world. It doesn't matter ace, age, gender, nationality. So let's just whether it's 2% or 5%, that's a massive number. That's hundreds of millions of people globally going back generations. Do you think the U.S. military could be responsible for that? Right? So that is Stephen Greer's story. That is his story, that it's all the military, which is physically impossible. So, I mean,
well, not only that, who in the military is going to do it? Because like, they legally cannot operate in the United States. There's only one unit in the military that can operate in the United States, and that's, well, at least in the active military, and that's Delta. Like, so you think however many squadrons of Delta, I don't know, maybe 4 to 8, maybe 10. Like, they don't think they have anything else to do around the world, right? You think they're coming in to like abduct people and dress up as aliens? Come on.
Well, there is such a thing as the my labs, or at least according to my research, there are the military abductions, but
Yeah,
it's
the
the
Mirage
small.
Men. But yeah, it's not all. It's just like it's a subset, right?
Yeah, it's a very small subset of the abduction phenomenon. And anyway, so that's my beef with Stephen Greer, is that I think that he spreads disinformation. Also, he spreads needless toxicity in the UFO community, going after Lou. He just can't let it go. He just has to attack Lou again and again, and meanwhile spreading what I think is disinformation. But you
By
can't
the way,
just.
I endorse NeoCal's icon here, which is basically like the University of California at Berkeley, only with like a hammer and a sickle. And I went to Stanford, so go Stanford, beat Cal.
I try not to get political, but I'm laughing.
Well, it's Berkeley. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right, right. George, thoughts on whether the phenomenon being indifferent, benevolent, or malevolent as a whole, and your thoughts on CE5 despite warnings from well-known figures like DeLong and Elizondo. Well, I've done CE5. I am so annoyed by Stephen Greer, but I think that one of the great things that he's done is popularize CE5. And I think that we can't rely on the government to give us anything. So we may have to do this ourselves. We may have to have our own direct involvement with the phenomenon in order to make any progress at all. And so I think Stephen Greer popularizing CE5 was really good. Now, about negative experiences, there are negative experiences that people have had with CE5. So I encourage you to be as cautious as you can. Go into it with good intentions. Try to bring somebody, and this is going to get a little woo-woo, but try to bring somebody with you that may have some abilities, some sensitivities, whether that's psychic or their third eye is open or whatever. Somebody who may know what's going on, being able to perceive stuff that the rest of us don't, and also be able to direct intentions toward the goodly beings. So just putting that out there.
So I'll just be so first of all, I think like anything, there's stuff that's indifferent. There's stuff that has interest that are not same interests as humanity, and there's some interests that are benevolent, right? Like anything else. In terms of whether or not it's safe, well, I tried it on probably the most dangerous location on Earth, so to try it, which is next to Skinwalker Mesa. So the only thing that happened was I had a little thought in my head when I was sleeping. Again, it could have just been I just had a thought. It's just coincidence. It was just the shadow people are real. I just had that thought, and then there was a massive gust of wind, and it blew a chair into the fire in my direction. So if that's the worst, Now, granted, you have to have. I had positive intentions. Everything was very positive, and so at best, nothing happened. At worst, something blew a chair into the fire at me. So, for what it's worth.
How was that? How was going out to the Skinwalker Ranch area?
It was it was interesting because like there's a place that's right next to the property, but on the show it looks like they own the mesa, but they don't own the mesa. There's like 3 people or like a bunch of different property owners that own pieces of it. And there was a time, when they were in that circle, they weren't authorized to use that circle at that time. But there's a party that's I don't want to some people are very litigious. So it's kind of like uh what's good, like I can do it, but if you do it, I'll sue you, like that kind of sort of thing. There's that kind of vibe, but regardless, it was we went in November, so it probably got down to about 25. Was that right? No, maybe like 45 degrees. It wasn't too bad, but it actually there was like very positive energy, like oddly positive energy at the very beginning, and then as kind of it was a full moon, and as it got dark, it's pretty like the energy changed a little bit, right? It felt a little ominous, right? The wind is like howling and like but it changed like at night, for some, and that's what they say when you go there too. But we didn't really, nothing odd happened. But we also didn't go there with like armed. Apparently, if you're armed, you will be more likely to be attacked.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Did you see any skinwalkers? I guess you didn't see any. But according to the book, The Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, which was a really great read, they were seeing so many skinwalkers, and there were reports in the area from the locals of skinwalkers, and they were so consistent and so many of them, they were able to track the migratory patterns
Oh
of
yeah,
skinwalkers.
oh yeah.
And
So the direction, so the migratory. This is what's his name, Doctor. Help me out here, Colm
Travis
Kelleher.
Taylor, Tom Keller,
Colm Kelleher. So apparently, this migratory pattern is from, what is it? From the southeast to like northwest, right? And that's like right. We had our campfire right along that path. Like it was the path that the wind was blowing.
Any idea why they migrate in that pattern or what that might signify? Or
He knows. Colm Kelleher knows a lot more than he lets
I'm sure
on.
he does. I'm sure
Like a lot more.
But I mean, if they
So
migrate, that has broad implications, right? I mean, animals migrate for food and also to mate. Is there some sort of natural process at work when they migrate, or are they? I mean, they're intelligent beings, presumably. So, are they nomadic? Is it, just like you would think that their people would be or had been in the past? Yeah, I'm just so fascinated by that. There was like the one line or one paragraph in the book about that, and then there was no follow up at all, and really frustrated me because I want to know as much as I can about skinwalkers. If they are able to track the migratory pattern of skinwalkers, then I want to know all about that.
well, I don't think it was just skinwalkers. It was just whatever these creatures and beings that manifest as they see that's kind of the direction they move from. But that part of the ranch, there's like a really dark part of the ranch, and they never really show it during the show. It's on the like the southwestern side of the ranch.
You mean dark as in lots of shade, or?
No, like Joe McMoneagle remote viewed it, and he said there was like lots of dark energy in that particular area. Whatever that means, I don't know. But that would be the direction from which the migratory pattern is.
And
like
is that
from
in
there
the
to
south? Is that in the south area?
South.
Okay.
I'm trying to think in terms of like map in my head. Southwest, and they move from the southwest. From south to north, and I can't remember if it's southeast or southwest.
Because on the most recent, or one of the most recent episodes of the show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, there was some phenomena that happened in the south of the property, and it doesn't normally occur. And so now they've got a new camera set up in the south, and it looks like they're going to be investigating the south more. Oh, and Christian, to answer your question, no, I don't know why they didn't have the episode on Tuesday. I was looking forward to that, and then it didn't come up. So is that because they didn't want to get crowded in with the NASA the next day? I don't know. I was expecting that to happen, and it didn't. Was it a mid-season break because it's an extra long season? I think that's probably the reason.
Yeah, it's probably planned. Oh, I haven't asked them yet, but I will see them. At least one of them I will see in June, around June 22nd or so at a convention. So I will ask him. But I mean, I asked him before, and he's just like, I don't know anything about that. he's like, I don't know anything about that. So he focuses on like propulsion and things like that. He's not looking at satellites. And but there's another person who is not in NASA, but we'll just not say more. Okay.
NASA is supposed to be the ultimate in space exploration, technological innovation, international cooperation, scientific discovery, etc. But now they're debunking balloons on $1 million cameras. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And now they want to put like, multi-million-dollar cameras up so they can get 4K resolution, right? Remember that?
Right.
We need more frame rates, calibration, and data.
Calibrate the
Data.
sensors. Calibrate the sensors.
Haystack. All right.
Is there an advanced civilization? The scientific method wouldn't work unless that advanced civilization wants it to reproduce and replicate? No. I don't know if I quite get that last one, but you mean are they here to interbreed with us? No.
Oh no, what he's saying is if there's a civilization more advanced than us, they can make the scientific method not work for us.
Oh yeah, sure. Well,
right, such that they're like, it's like at Skinwalker, you can never replicate any experiment because it just does something different every time.
Yeah, I mean these guys can walk through walls. I mean they're they can make their ships invisible whenever they want. When they let their ships be visible, I think they're largely doing that because they want to be seen. Not always. I think they do get caught sometimes. All we can do is look for anomalies in our sensors and electromagnetic anomalies, whatever. That's all we can effing do. If there's an advanced civilization and we're not on top, it all changes. Yeah, it really does. Scientifically, it would be a challenge like no other. It really would, man. If we came across beings that were potentially thousands or even millions or billions of years in advance of us, I mean, obviously, there's no way we could go up against them. I think that's what Lou Elizondo meant when he said it would be a somber day when that happened, because we would realize we're no longer at the top of the food chain, and we would be faced with the reality that we are at the mercy of forces that we cannot control. And I think that that there's something to that. And, that is a process that we are going to have to undergo. And in 2017, I had to go through that process. And, I'm sure we all did at some point when we realized the reality of the UFO phenomenon is that, hey, there are these beings here that we are not going to be able to do anything about if they are hostile. So, what does that imply? It implies that we are at their mercy to a certain extent. And
yeah, look,
it's an uncomfortable feeling.
If they didn't want to deal with us, we wouldn't be here by now.
Exactly. And that's why I think of the phenomenon in a positive light. I think there's negative and positive actors everywhere. But generally the phenomenon seems to be very positive. And my interactions, such as they've been, I don't want to oversell my interactions, but have been very positive. And
here's the thing: we don't even know if they're, ETs, right?
Right.
They could be. Right. I mean, look, I'm going to come up with some crazy stuff. That doesn't mean I endorse it, but they could be interdimensional beings. They could be future humans. They could be, some emanation or manifestation of like Gaia, planet Earth, right? Which would explain their obsession with nukes. They could be some what we historically called angels or jinn or whatever, right? Who knows?
I think it's all of the above, man. I really do.
We're that. Yeah, we're all the above. Who knows?
Yeah. Crypto terrestrial.
I mean, they could be tulpas for right?
Like, well, what's a tulpa? That name sounds.
It's a thought form. So it's like you have like Tibetan monks just like manifesting like a physical being, right?
Yeah. I think that it could be that. Yeah, I think that's possible. I know of a case where they manifested a ghost, which is an interesting case. But that's more of the paranormal case. But yeah, it's a long story. But yeah, they wanted to see if they could create a ghost, if ghosts could possibly be manifestations of consciousness. So they did this experiment where they came up with a list of features of a personality and a name and a history of a person, and then they tried to create that individual as a ghost, and they were able to do it. and they other people as well as them have tried to repeat that, not much success, but with a little bit of success. That seems to indicate that I don't think it's an explanation for the more paranormal stuff, but it is possibly an explanation for part of it. That some of it is our conscious projections or unconscious projections, or even something more complicated. Unconscious projections of Gaia. I mean, so.
Or we could be in a simulation.
Or we could all be in a simulation. Yeah, yeah. But
In terms of like, why didn't we throw the world's nukes into the sun? I think there's some element of like non-interference or evolution. Like I just interviewed Tom Campbell today, and his theory is more on the simulation side, but his whole point is that this consciousness is constantly pushing toward lower entropy, and in order to get to lower entropy, you have to constantly evolve. So if nuclear weapons are an existential threat to human life, as far as we know, is the most advanced on Earth and highest evolved species on Earth that we know of. That you threaten that drive toward evolution of the consciousness because it creates more entropy rather than less. So there are multiple reasons why that could be one, or it could just be this non-intervention sort of thing.
Well, that is kind of the narrative you get from a lot of contact experiences, is that there is a non-interference policy, that they don't want to influence our free will. That doesn't explain why they kidnap people and do things to them. But yeah, that is a common narrative. The beings say a lot of things.
It could be that they kidnap people to help them evolve, right? To add upgrades and.
No, that is very common, and that seems to be a thing, and that could be possibly the reason why they do it. A lot of people that are abducted, their experiences start negative, but then they become very positive, and they learn all sorts of things. How to heal people, how to read auras, how to get in touch with their chakras. It gets very, very, very woo-woo, but that seems to be where a lot of contact experiences go. And they do seem to get upgraded, and they come back with heightened abilities, psychic abilities, all sorts of abilities. Chris Bledsoe can heal, and that seems to be part and parcel of the abduction phenomenon, and that's actually very encouraging. Many abductees say that they agreed to this before they were born. That also is a common refrain from the contact experience, is that they signed up for this, maybe not in this life, but before they were born, when they incarnated into this world, they had agreed to do this, and to help the ETs or whatever, the other dimensionals, in whatever they were doing, but also to upgrade humanity and evolve humanity. So is that an exchange? Because that's another thing that you get in contact experiences, is this idea of an exchange. We need something from you, genetic tissue, whatever, but in exchange, we will teach you these things that you have forgotten in your amnesia, in your race, and we will upgrade you to where you should be. And you can be a beacon of light and a potential to other people. And so I really do think there is something to that.
Now, do we think the inner Earth begins at Skinwalker? I have no idea. Do you have anything to say about that, Jack?
I have really mixed thoughts on the inner Earth. I'm not a big inner Earth believer. However, at the same time, I have seen a good amount of evidence, both from experiencers and remote viewers, to indicate that there are very likely civilizations of non-humans, and possibly humans or human-looking beings, deep within the Earth, in vast hollow caverns and great cities within the Earth. So I don't necessarily think the Earth is hollow, but I do think there are vast hollow places within the Earth that some of these beings probably live.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Even an alien craft can go 40 miles per hour if it feels like it.
Right.
They're acting like it's a smoking gun. It's going 40 miles an hour. Therefore, it's not, anomalous. Yeah.
Yeah. No seagull flies that high.
Yeah.
Wooden
Okay.
balloon. He does, man. He really does. And it's so annoying because I really wish you could just completely discount the guy, but you can't. He popularized E5. He did the UFO summit in 2005. He's got another one coming up next month. He's got terabytes of data that he's going to unleash upon us.
That's not really that much. Like, you could fit probably all the video on each of our channels on like 5 terabytes.
Okay. All
so
right.
Let's see. Okay, I think he's talking about aliens.
But even if it's just like one, even if there's just one juicy video that has witnesses and some evidence to back it up, that could be big. Warm-blooded, at least. Hey, John.
Yeah, there's Barbara Lamb has a story about that, about some guy who's taken on a ship and during regression and like the hottest female he's ever seen in his entire life. And then like she shimmers for a second. It turns out to be like a lizard person, something like that. And then the guy couldn't be with his wife, anyway. Yeah. That's not the John Ramirez, is it?
No. It's he's one of my regulars. I love him, and it's Swamp Gas. Yeah.
No, it's Flares. Flares.
Oops. Swamp Gas mated with a seagull. Yeah, no, my labs is definitely part of it, Christian. I mean, they're in there, and I go back and forth on whether the people doing it are independent. Because one of the features of my labs when they abduct people is they will interrogate them because the people they are abducting are already alien abductees, and they will interrogate them about what the beings did and said and about their technology. So it seems to be an effort on the part of the military to figure out what the beings are doing. But then at the same time, they're using a lot of the same technology and the techniques that the beings are doing. So is this some aspect of the control group that has access to this high level technology? Or is it an independent military organization that is trying to get answers? Or is it the control group itself trying to interrogate abductees, which it doesn't really make sense because during a lot of contact experiences, people see military officials and government types there. So it seems like somebody within the government or peripheral to the government or parallel to the government is helping with the abductions. Like in the Terry Lovelace case, he saw 50 military guys aboard a giant UFO. So that seems to be a thing. So who is abducting people? Who in my labs? I'm trying to make sense of it, because if we're working with the beings in their abductions, why would we then abduct people that have been already abducted, that we helped abduct, to interrogate them about what happened? So I don't know. That's a great question. I would love to know more about my labs and what is the agenda behind that.
Well, there's probably a lot of smoke and mirrors too. Like you'll never really get to the bottom of it. I do know that he gave, he had a iPhone that showed his pressure sensor, the one that measured altitude, just shows him going straight through the house, 60 feet above his house, above his bed. He gave it to Lou Elizondo. Never got it back.
Come on, Lou.
I'm on the fence with him. I haven't talked to him, but
with Lou.
Well, I mean, once you're in counterintelligence, I don't know.
Would they really pick a counterintelligence guy to be a psyop guy?
Of course, I'm counterintelligence. That's too obvious. Right? Usually when you do things in plain sight, people discount it. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying it's
because that's going to be the first thing that people say. That's if there were just some CIA analyst or something, then that wouldn't be your go-to answer. but counterintelligence, clearly he's a psyop guy. I mean, that's, so yeah.
All right.
I'm pro Lou.
Is it Stephen Greer month?
Next
Apparently.
month. Well, no, you're right. June has started. Yep, the Stephen Greer month. Damn it.
I just have
Damn it.
Das Satan. Das Satan. All right. Oh no, flares. I'm just kidding, obviously.
Oh, and if anybody's watching this on my channel, I'm over on Sean's channel right now. I'm not really looking at any comments. So come over to Sean's channel through Glass Darkly. There's a link in the description and comment if you're not already here. I see several of you are already here.
Are you seeing the comments on your YouTube channel?
No, I'm not. I'm not. So they may already be here.
That's weird. Okay.
Well,
all right. Well, by the way, just for the audience to know, like we literally kind of Shanghaied this thing together, and poor Jack is like, I'm like, hey, you can stream it on your channel too if you want. I enabled it, and he's like, how do I do that? I'm like, I don't know. So,
but I do have 25 people watching on my channel.
Okay, so that's most of them. All right, yeah, he's got a documentary coming out.
Well, I mean, maybe it's showing combined numbers. I don't know.
Yeah, they're definitely showing combined numbers, I think. Yeah. Well, actually, I don't know. We'll find out afterwards. No, please don't. Just buy his app. The app is like a few bucks, right?
Well, my MUFON group has done CE5 a couple times, and we had experiences both times. I didn't see anything, but others did, and they had amazing experiences. One of them, the first one, was more of a extra dimensional experience. It was people were like being taken like half out of their body, but they were having these amazing experiences with these beings of light. And I could go more into that, but but they were having these profound, really, really cool experiences. And I felt kind of gypped that I didn't get that. But they were all having the same experience. This is a meditation after we started the CE5. None of them were aware of each other's experiences. And then afterward, they were coming to me and reporting their experience. And because I led the CE5, and they were all the consistent thing. It was the same thing each of them were experiencing. And so it was this amazing experience. The second time we did CE5, a lot of people were seeing UFOs, and about half of us were seeing UFOs and half of us weren't. I didn't see anything. I was one of those that they didn't show themselves to, but that is kind of common in UFO sightings. So one person will see it and the person right next to them won't see it. So, I guess my vibration wasn't high enough on that day. I don't know. But there was some other stuff. There were some people that could see stuff. Their third eye was open. They were actually seeing beings on the ground with us. And some people were being tapped and poked and prodded, and they could see what was going on. So CE5 works, and you can initiate contact and have amazing experiences. My own UFO experience came like a month or two after that, when I wasn't even looking for UFOs. So.
All right. Just read that with ZZ Top in your head.
They got legs. You
don't want a copyright strike.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. I don't think I sung well enough to get you a copyright strike.
No, and I interrupted you, so
okay.
Well, both of us would get one.
Do you believe the entities associated with the phenomena are extraterrestrial or interdimensional, and why? Do you believe the entities are capable of manipulating our perception or consciousness? Well, maybe we can both answer. Well, I'll let you go first.
On number 2, 100%. On number 1, I think I don't know about interdimensional. I think they might be hyperdimensional, i.e., like a higher. I don't know if frequency is the right word, or higher dimension, or just higher, more evolved beings, right? At least the Chris Bledsoe thing, he doesn't consider them ETs. He calls them angels or something like that. But light beings is probably a better or a more modern term that you would use. So I think I think it's a mixture of kind of all of the above. Just because there's been some crashes of things, right, that have potentially been recovered, but there's also things that are very non-physical, like the stuff that Bledsoe has been interacting with, and the government takes it seriously, right? Because they locked him down for a while.
Yeah, all of my experiences, except possibly for the UFO experience, have been more metaphysical and less nuts and bolts. Yeah, even the UFO may have been a metaphysical event. So I tend to believe more in the interdimensional or the more metaphysical explanations. One of my favorite experiencers is Peter Maxwell Slattery, who's a high level experiencer who's been to like other dimensions and things. And he'd be an interesting guest for you to have on. He says that only the bottom 10% of the phenomenon of the UFO phenomenon of what we're seeing in the skies is nuts and bolts craft from another planet. He says 90% of it is beings from a higher dimension or more metaphysical. So I think that he's probably more or less on the money there.
Yeah, I wouldn't ascribe like a certain percentage, but I definitely
that's what I mean. I don't want to get into a percentage thing, but I think that the bulk of it is probably metaphysical or other dimensional or something. It's not
Blackheart Mountains anomalies. Do you know what that is?
Blackheart Mountains. That's some chime is going off in my head, but no, I no. Parasites can manipulate thought and perception.
Yeah.
Toxoplasmosis makes people reckless and depressed or something. Or say worms trying to make water before they go on. Okay. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. There's also like that. I don't. There's like the wasp and the spider. I can't remember which hijacks which, right? But
yeah.
And
there's a weird parasite that gets in dead ants and can actually pilot a zombie ant. I don't know. I hope that has nothing to do with the phenomenon.
It might.
Coulthard and DeLong suggested that the somber comment from Lou was in reference to terrifying info about how these entities are nefariously capable of altering our consciousness and perception. Well, that goes along with being at their mercy, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's nice. You know what would be nice? If we actually knew about it, rather than having the government keep quiet about it. Wouldn't it be nice to know that, like, this is a possibility and you can, you don't go completely insane because you don't know what just happened to you? Would it be nice to have a warning? Like, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody to protect you from that? That's what I hate, these kind of comments. Like, not comments, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
no,
people.
Just imagine how many people are currently or have been in insane asylums because of contact experiences. Likely many people that have, died in misery because of their experiences. And that's because this has been marginalized and stigmatized and made into a fringe topic. And if the government had been honest, that would not have happened.
Bigfoot, what say you, Jack?
Well, there's been numerous contactees that see Bigfoot interacting with the beings from the UFOs.
That's like the San Luis Valley incident, right?
There's multiple ones. There are people who have been abducted aboard spaceships, and they see Bigfoot aboard the actual spaceship. And there are people on land that see Bigfoot interacting with the beings on land, and it seems like the beings, and I say beings, but of course Bigfoot is a being. But you know what I mean. The guys from the UFOs seem to be above the Bigfoot. Bigfoot seem to be subservient to the guys in the UFOs. And there's all sorts of paranormal aspects to the Bigfoot and the other dimensional aspects to Bigfoot, and weird UFO sightings that happen in conjunction sometimes with Bigfoots, and weird lights that happen that also happen during contact experiences. So there's a lot of commonalities between Bigfoot and the beings. So I think they're all part and parcel of the same overall cosmology, personally.
Yeah, I think it could be all of the above. It could be none of the above. It could be ultra terrestrials. I don't know. I
Well, one of my favorite theories, and this is my own personal theory about Bigfoot, and it's just an idea. I hate to see, it's not my, I don't think this is necessarily the truth, but what if, because we have evolved in a technological fashion, right? Well, what if there was an alternate Earth where there were man like beings that evolved without as much technology, but in a more spiritual direction? And it came to the point where they
yeah.
evolved so highly that they could even phase in and out of reality and go to other dimensions and other parallel planets. Well, what if something like that could be possible?
Yeah, I think that's actually a fairly compelling hypothesis as well, right? But again, I don't know.
I don't
Yeah.
either.
Some people look. I don't. I think net Greer is on the whole a good thing, but there's a few things that one those two things that he said. I had people I know people interview people who've worked in Army intelligence, and they're just like, oh, come on. Um, yeah, yeah. I think they're definitely. Well, I don't know definitely, but there's probably some manipulation of portals.
They do seem to have time travel abilities. That seems to be a thing. Some of them.
So this is interesting. Yeah, I think. Well, I think it could be both, right? Because I think if you have a theory about reality where, I mean, right, 99.999% of what you see with people, like we're empty space, right? And we're just vibrating light and sound. So when you're upon death, I think we're much denser, kind of lower frequency physical objects. I think if you have, those phonons, which are units of vibration, and then photons, which are units of light, I think maybe they vibrate a lot faster. So it would be like the reason you don't see the dead or the consciousness of the dead is if you have a fan, right, and it's moving slowly, you see it. But if it spins to some incredible speed, you would just see beyond the fan, right? So that might be a model of reality that explains that, where ET can see them because they're more spiritually evolved than we are. But again, I'm stabbing in the dark. Like these are just ideas that people can throw around, but until we have data, right?
Yeah,
Um,
unless you see the ETs interacting with the ghost in 4K, with multiple sensors seeing it at the same time. Yeah, it didn't happen.
yeah, we have to calibrate our what's that thing where those spirit boxes?
The spirit boxes, yeah. I got one of
All
those.
right.
But
Yeah,
hang on,
yeah.
I wanted to go back to the comment about Anne Strieber because that was really interesting. She because I love Willie Strieber and I've read several of his books and they're really compelling. And the one that he co-wrote with Anne after her death, because he was receiving this communication with her via his implant. He was actually able to see stuff in his eye. There was a communication from Anne supposedly, and they co-wrote this book together. That's what he says, and so I think Anne is a really interesting figure in all this, and she says, according to her, it's got something to do with death. And that is backed up by a lot of contact experiences. A whole lot of contactees either see their dead relatives with contact experiences, or they go to other dimensions and some of those could be placeholder memories, but they'll go to other dimensions that could be, according to them, like Deep Prasad and Whitley Strieber both say they were taken somewhere that was a deeper level of reality, which is similar to how a lot of near death experiencers describe the realms they go to after death. So could they be going to the same place, the same sort of dimensions? When Peter Maxwell Slattery talks about 90% of this is coming from other dimensions, is that what he's talking about? Or some of that? Is some subset of this coming from the dimensions where souls reside? I think that's a fantastic question. And I think that that is a part of this. I think that Anne was onto something. And there's other experiencers that say really interesting things when they describe how the ships move through dimensions. Some will say some of the beings will punch through a dimension that is a spiritual dimension, and because they can get here quicker that way from whatever dimension or reality they're in, and souls will follow them through the hole they created when they punch through, and so that's how a ghost or whatever, some of them come into our world, according to that experiencer. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover here. Great question.
So they're like barnacles? Is that what you're saying?
They're like barnacles. Yeah, that's right.
That's anything's possible.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's real or not, but it's who knows.
I mean, maybe they do live on Earth.
Yeah, we were just talking earlier about how they may live under the ocean. I mean, they could live right next to us in some slightly altered vibrational state or something. They could be right here.
NeoCal, this is the first one. This is like I do live streams once a month separately. Jack does them
whenever I feel like it, which hasn't been very much lately, but I really should get on a regular pattern.
Yeah, like I'm the anal retentive one, and Jack's like the laissez-faire one. So
I'm a writer. I'm an artsy fartsy, lazy writer, and yeah, probably should.
But yeah, this is the first one we're doing together. So you caught the first one. I mean, there are multiple theories on that.
Yeah, we'll find out soon. Do we have a release date on that yet? I don't know.
I
mean, because people keep on talking about this big disclosure event that's going to happen. Could that be it? Or is that going to be leading up to it?
So here's what I've heard from a number of different sources. So it sounds like To the Stars Academy is trying to do their own thing, like a big release. And I think Jim Semivan is, because he had an experience, and I think he's kind of like, people in government aren't going to, they're just not going to, they don't have the infrastructure or the know-how to be able to deal with this. So, and I think the Bledsoe phenomena is going to start doing stuff regardless, right? Because it's that point, I think, in human consciousness that, according to, I think, Bledsoe, these things kind of come out when kind of the collective human misery reaches certain points. That's why you saw them during World War II with Foo Fighters and things like that. And they kind of come out when humanity needs help and needs to evolve. So again, just that's what these beings have told him, but I don't know what that means.
Well, that's a fascinating idea, because there's a lot of correlation between trauma and UFO events. So could there
he's not wrong about this, right? Because you always hear it's highly jarring, and then all of a sudden they love their captors, right? That is, I'm not saying it is Stockholm Syndrome, but that's not an unfair argument at all.
Well, no. Okay. So the Edgar Mitchell Foundation, which I love, the Edgar Mitchell Foundation, the astronaut Edgar Mitchell, got this organization going, and they study abductions, and they study consciousness stuff, and it is really cool. And so they have some really interesting data. And one of their pieces of data is that contactees who have been abducted 10 times or more have an overwhelmingly positive view of their captor, of the experience. So So is that Stockholm syndrome, or has the condition evolved from a negative to a positive, like you see often, or is that itself the Stockholm syndrome?
Right. It's like having a tough parent, and then when you're growing up, you're like, oh, I understand why they were tough.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Or it's
Right.
Stockholm syndrome.
Right.
Who knows?
Right. Well, some of the contact experiences are, people get felicity. Okay. All right. All right.
I'm worried. Although I saw, did you see, Jack? Did you see the Logan Paul interview of Stephen Greer?
No.
I
What?
felt awful for Stephen Greer. It was like the lowest IQ experience. Like I don't watch that at all. I'm like, oh, here's Stephen Greer and this guy's interview. I'll listen to it. And it's just like these two like morons were like, like and Stephen Greer was like just sitting there in perfect composure. Like, I don't know why. Like, the guy has like an MD, right? He must be like, these guys are literally human monkeys. Like, what is going on here? Anyway, um,
I'm gonna have
uh,
to watch that.
yeah, you're not. I don't think you're gonna be able to take it because at first it's kind of funny, and then you're like, this is like I'm really embarrassed for like, but the thing is, like, Greer knows that it's got millions. He's gonna get millions of views, right? Because whatever, millions of subscribers. But I mean, man, he had to, whew, he had to take one for the team on that one.
Yeah, Logan Paul, he's the one that has the UFO video, right? That he stole from
Yeah,
that
that he
guy,
like
or
illegally, yeah, that he
I mean,
recorded without
he
permission.
didn't steal it, but he he videoed it surreptitiously. Yeah,
Yeah,
are
so
we
can you
ever
play
going
it
to get
again?
that?
Can you play it again? Can you play it? Can you play it again?
Right?
Right.
Yeah, let me get a different angle on that.
All right. Look, I would interview, but I'm worried I would upset him by just asking that question about the general and the $2 billion, right?
Oh, interview Stephen Greer. Hey, that'd be a great interview. You would get a lot of views, man. I mean, you should. I mean, he would
I
be.
mean, I would be fair. I would be fair, but I'd be a little nervous about, because I mean, I'm gonna be respectful, but I would ask him some difficult questions.
Good. I'll watch that. But yeah, you don't want to antagonize him. But yeah,
This is a wild question. I mean, there might, like, maybe AI, maybe silicon based life forms, right? I don't know about like full metal transforming into things, but it's possible. Like, you have like a metallic chassis, and I think anything's possible.
okay, well, all right. I guess it depends on what your definition of transformer is, right? If you mean turning from a big rig into a giant robot, maybe not. But a lot of the Greys, for example, are described as androids, right? Artificial beings. So, and we know there's a lot of shape shifting that is also supposed to happen around the beings. So, if you have an artificial being that's shape shifting, boom, you got a transformer, right?
I assure you, if there's my labs, it is a black project, because you can't do that stuff to American citizens. At least the military. The military can't. It's illegal.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's see.
Oh,
How can we
NASA
know?
knows.
Yeah, they know. I mean, to be fair, it might be entirely plausible that the people on that panel have no idea.
Oh, I'm sure they picked those guys because they didn't know anything. No,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'm on the fence about how much Bill Nelson knows. I mean, if the president of the United States isn't briefed on this, is the president of NASA?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would think that he would be in on it. And his public displays of trying to get to the bottom of this and appointing this team to do this is all for show. This is just window dressing to distract us while they
But look,
continue
I mean,
suppressing.
he pulled Ming the Merciless right out of Central Casting. I mean, it's perfect. It's like, so. Yeah, we don't know more than NASA. I mean, that's for sure. But they know more, or at least some compartments of NASA know far more than.
Back in the 60s or 70s, they were showing off pictures of, bases on the moon, alien bases on the moon to people. And, where's that? So, yeah, they know stuff.
I gotta show Christian my name.
Sean Patrick Hazlett. Through a Glass Darkly. Great channel. He does great interviews. Really fantastic interviews.
And then Cosmic Road is outstanding because Jack does excellent analysis. I think I think a year from now, the Pentagon, not the Pentagon, but the government is going to be scrambling to explain away thousands of direct contact in U.S. or not direct contact, but sightings. Like they're going to be overwhelmed, and they're either going to have to admit that something exists, or it'll cost the current president the next election. I mean, that's the other thing that's going on.
Wow, that would be something, wouldn't it? If the public demand for disclosure was so great that it actually influenced a presidential election. Wow.
Well, and it's not about the UFO thing. It's just about trust in government and things like that, right? Which I think is at an all-time low. I haven't looked at that empirically, but it's pretty low right now. And I think if they continue to stonewall on this, it just reinforces that narrative, and it's going to hurt whoever's the incumbent, Republican or Democrat, right? In Congress, it'll hurt them too. So that's what I think. I think they're going to start to look, they're either going to have to admit it, or they're going to start to look incredibly ridiculous, like absurd. Like whole NASA thing was completely, it was just like, or like, I felt like I felt like I was being gaslit the whole time.
We were. That's exactly what was going on. We were being gaslit. But yeah, about disclosure and the president, hang on. Do you find it odd that John Ramirez stated that he won't be taking any more interviews till after disclosure?
By the way, I reached out to him to get an interview, and he's just like, no more. I'm not in. I got caught up in that stupid thing.
Did he say he wouldn't do any more until after disclosure? What did he say?
I think so. I think so. Well, I mean, I think it was more like, I'm not. He just basically said, I'm not doing any more interviews. I have like 2 more this month or something like that, and then I'm done until for the year or something like that. I should look, actually. I'm just saying this stuff on memory. Actually, that's not where I keep talking, Jack, while I find it so that we're not.
Yeah, well, just going back to the presidents and UFOs, it's really interesting. The Haim Shed story, the brigadier general in Israel, who was one of their high up muckety mucks in the Israeli space program, who was saying that there was a galactic federation of, beings, and that it was connected with many governments on Earth, and that everybody knew it. All the big wigs in the government knew it. And that President Trump found out about it, and he was going to reveal it to the world, and that he was talked out of it. Now, do I believe that he would be talked out of that? I find that hard to swallow, honestly. But then again, they have managed to control this for, with everybody going back for many decades. They have great power and a great ability to influence. And, like we've talked about just today, somebody mentioned, mind control earlier, and they do seem to have those capabilities as well. So, but I do think that the Haim Shed story is really compelling. He's basically on his deathbed, a very old man who has had this insider access for all these years. And here he is coming out and dropping these major bombshells. It's pretty far out there, talking about the Galactic Federation and everything. But then again, if there are beings out there, they would have some sort of bureaucratic process and organization and ways for different races to work together. And they're here, so there must be working together in some fashion. There seem to be multiple races here, so I don't think it's that far fetched that there could be a galactic federation. So I think that's really interesting. According to that story, then the world leaders, or some of them, know about this. So I
All right,
guess
so here's what he said. It just said, I am no longer accepting invitations for interviews. I have 3 more this month and 1 later this year. And this was like May 21st. So that's the way you answer an email if you're CIA. I don't know what it means, because there's some people who are super confident. It could also be like a psyop, right? Where you get all these guys pumped up, and then you get Gary Nolan, who is highly credible, to kind of like stick his you know what out into the wind, and then you just chop it off and destroy his credibility, right? That's like, I'm
right.
serious. That's like a classic psyop, right?
Right, yeah, Lucy in the football, yeah, absolutely. I think that
But
they
it's
could
worse
be
than that, because what it does is it's an attempt to destroy somebody who's highly credible,
right.
their credibility. But I talked to him in 10 days, so it's good timing. I mean, I scheduled that thing like months out, and then he makes that statement a few weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, nice. Christian, yeah. I think Christian
Was talking about
found.
you.
Hey,
Was
well,
talking about,
yeah, Cosmic Road, Christian, Cosmic Road. If
yeah, Jack Connor with Cosmic Road.
I thought there was a Christian on the channel, but maybe not. Maybe that's a different one. What sci-fi?
All right.
What sci-fi movie or TV show most represents our current reality? What was that Mike Judge movie, Idiocracy?
Well, that's independent of the UFO thing, but yeah, well, yeah, Idiocracy would be.
Well, I guess we're talking about mind wiping and controlling information. So 1984. That's my vote.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm trying to think. There's anything that's that involves the other phenomena. I mean, you could also say, what's that movie with there's a Philip K. Dick movie where they have precogs.
Yeah.
Right? Where they put people in prison
Tom
before
Cruise.
they commit crimes.
Yeah. Minority Report.
Yeah. I think we're getting pretty close to that.
Yeah, I can see
Not there yet, but we're pretty close. All right, they're still.
Love that. Okay. The beings seem to be able to use telepathy to receive and also to send words, emotions, or pictures to the subject's brain. Absolutely, they do that. That seems to be how they communicate, is mind to mind. Almost invariably, you very, very rarely hear about them having verbal communications. So,
I mean, if we had that ability, our entire civilization would collapse.
Yeah,
right. Because the people, you would be able to lie to everybody all the time.
Yeah, nobody needs to know what I'm thinking. It's just as well we don't have that ability.
Oh, I would have no problem with it. I just the people who are like people who lie often would have problems.
Right.
Yeah, he said that in one of his interviews. But I think his answer was that we're all hybrids in some way, shape, or form. Right. Even though he said that he was having like stuff as a kid. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Where is the data? Sorry, from time to time, if you're just joining, I'm doing my best impression of NASA.
We must calibrate the sensors.
We must look in the haystack.
Are not calibrated. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the persistent narratives out there, is that the beings created us. And so, there's several different versions of that story, though. And that's my problem with it. When the beings talk, I listen. I study what the beings say, and all these contact experiences. I have made a great study of what the beings say. And so when they talk persistently about certain themes, like, the origin of humanity, or why they're here, who are they? But even the same seeming races will have totally different versions of their origin story that all tell the same. That's trying to advance the same agenda, which is we're weak, we're a dying race, and we need you. And they tell that story in different ways. We come from the future. We've genetically modified ourselves into, we can't breed anymore. We can't have reproduce. So we need you. Or some we're from the past. We're a dying race, and we've come forward to the future to because we need you. Or we're from out in space, and we have we have become so enmeshed with technology, and we're like half android at this point, that now we need you, because we've lost. Or another one is we've lost our ability, our connection with spirit, because of all this modification that we've done on ourselves, and so we need you to get that back. So that's the common narrative they are trying to get across, that they are weak, they are dying, and they need us. So do I believe any of those stories? No, because they can't all be true.
So on the Ramirez holding off on interviews, we know that because he said that in a few other interviews, and he also said it to me in a back and forth when I invited him to interview. He said he was only going to do 3 more or something like that. So, and I think he's already done 2 of them.
Are they following the part on Skinwalker Ranch? Yeah, they're talking
Yeah,
about
probably. Yeah, I think he's talking about
migrating.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great question. If there's a portal to Skinwalker Ranch, that would explain why they're migrating. I think that is a great point. I think that's a great idea. I like that a lot.
Funny. This is actually a good. So odd that scientists won't touch documented intelligent EVPs with a 10-foot pole. Funny you say that, because the not entire, but the U.S. security establishment mobilized the Secret Service to prevent an attempted assassination of Pope Francis, based on an EVP recording at Chris Bledsoe's house. That plus a Joe McMoneagle confirmation remote viewing and a Bledsoe remote viewing. I guess they taught him how to remote view. So
that was really interesting that they had enough faith in him that they set him to remote view, even though he's not a trained remote viewer.
I don't think they know as much about the whole phenomena as we think they do in terms of the government, but they know enough to have seen what Bledsoe is going through before, right? Like Semi-Van told him that, usually after 12 years, your life gets better after going through. Like, what other cases does he know about, right? Like, so yeah, in American Cosmic, there's another woman who was saying, now unless she disguised Bledsoe as a woman, that's possible, but I don't think so. So like he's not an isolated case.
Yeah, I mean, could there be a template out there for Chris Bledsoe type experiences? That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've heard of like Our Lady of Fatima, Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Sure.
The Catholic Church just called it Mary. That doesn't mean it was Mary, right?
Right.
So,
well, there was a remote viewing session done on that, and they thought it was an alien, but that was from a remote viewing group that I have questions about. There's a good, talented remote viewers.
Is this the Farsight Institute?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, they're the people who there was something that so Courtney Brown, I think they hoaxed him or something like that. So he went on to please look this up because I'm half remembering it. I could get it wrong. But he went on Coast to Coast AM and gave this huge prediction about this comet that was coming. And that's, I'm going to be very careful with my words. That's when that, what was that cult called? Heaven's Gate?
Gateway or
Heaven's Gate cult.
Heaven's
where they
Gate,
all like killed themselves so they could go to this. So there was some linkage between the two.
Ooh.
But like he was kind of hoaxed. So, and I think he's also closely associated with Ed Dames, who has a, you know,
I don't know Ed Dames.
he's the guy who Doctor Doom, like solar flares going to destroy the planet this year.
Okay.
No, next year it's coming.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
he was part of the original remote viewing program, but he was a monitor. He wasn't a remote viewer.
Right.
So
Well,
yeah.
I think the Farsight Institute used to do great stuff. You know, Dick Algeier and Daz Smith were part of Farsight, but they left a
Oh,
few
I
years.
don't know if they were part of it. I think they just worked on a contract for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they work
Like
with Farsight and they
Daz
work
Smith
with.
is awesome. Like he's a
He is.
good.
He
Yeah.
is. And if you get a chance, try to interview Dick Algeier also. He's another extremely talented remote viewer.
Oh
He and Daz work together now, and they have for years. They
yeah,
work.
Dick. Yeah, that guy's awesome too. But I haven't interviewed him yet. I need to reach out
Yeah.
to him.
Well, next time you get a chance to do a remote viewer, he might be a good one.
Okay, so if Go Fast was traveling at 40, yeah, that's totally fair. Like, why would it be so hard to get a lock on it?
Right. Well, I mean, you could hear the excitement in the voices of the pilots. They did not sound like somebody's that were excited about locking onto an object going 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, this could be again. I think this is the ultra terrestrial hypothesis, or well, I don't know if that's the same as advanced human civilization, but that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, totally, man. You should. A Dick, or who?
I don't know.
We were talking
Oh,
about
you mean
having.
like maybe Stephen Greer have I don't know, but I don't know if you'd agree. Yeah, I don't. Is it your channel, Jack, that's underrated?
I don't know. Both of us.
Yeah, we're definitely both underrated. See, this is Kev's hypothesis, which is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kev, but I think his view is it's kind of an advanced human civilization.
Hey, you know that's
I don't have any hard conclusions. The only hard conclusions I have is that we have sensor data to indicate that there is something in our skies that is intelligently piloted. That is a hard conclusion that I think is impossible to dispute with the
I
evidence.
think that it is very possible that there are remnants from prior great civilizations like Atlantis, to give it a name. You know, whether it's was actually called Atlantis or something else. I do think that there were high levels of civilization before our current era, and I think that the evidence supports that. And do I
Well,
think there
there's
could be?
Göbekli Tepe, right, which is like 9,000 years old in Turkey, and we
Right,
weren't building stuff like that. We were hunter gatherers until like 4,000 BC or something.
right.
We're only been around
And,
for 6,000 years, Jack.
and there are so many commonalities of mythologies and cultures all over the world. Different. I mean, the same characters and languages, the same motives in the mythology, the flood myth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That seem to suggest some sort of shared, maybe not culture, but at least some mechanism of interacting with other cultures in other parts of the world, which seems, yeah. And I don't want to get into the Atlantis thing is a whole other subject. I love Atlantis, but yeah, and Dolores Cannon definitely talks about Atlantis.
Yeah, she also talks about Earth School, right? Where the reality here is we're just a school. Okay, let's see.
But yeah, I do think
Yeah,
that some.
yeah, we didn't make this point. We did not make this point, and he like George is 100% spot on, right? Like
Thoughts on the
they're talking
NASA
about
panel?
decreasing the space. Yes, yeah, and then Scott Kelly gets up there and he's like, "Oh, when I was an astronaut, like I had 30 years, I haven't seen anything like that." And like, one time we had a Bart Simpson balloon, and like we thought it was just like, I'm sorry, but what an a-hole! Like,
Yeah,
go f
really,
yourself, man. Like, just go
really.
eat
Yeah.
you know what? Like,
You
what?
guys are
Like,
not helping. Thank you.
I mean, no,
Yeah,
but
but
it just
they weren't there to be helpful. I mean, they yeah. It
yeah.
was all a
There's
sham. They're Project Blue booking us.
all right. I think what I want to share something. Let me see if I can do it real quick. Uh,
By the way, my wife is
mm,
watching TV in the next room. She just turned it off, turned it on. If that is audible or bothers anybody, let me know and I'll ask her to maybe turn it down or move to the bedroom.
no, while I play around with this, we'll just keep talking. But I have to I have to put it on like a different browser. All right, but where are we? What's the next question?
Okay, Christian says, Jack, there was this chat in Q chat about a guy claiming he was a whistleblower and it's probably fake, but how he answered questions was fascinating and it made sense. Q chat, is that Q anon like on 4chan? I don't know. I don't follow that. But let me know what he said. I'd be real curious. Trump's son interviewed Trump on his podcast and asked him about UFOs and aliens. Trump basically said he couldn't discuss it. Pretty much the
Yeah,
same answer Obama gave. Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Grant Cameron, one of my favorite UFO researchers, talks a lot about the briefings that presidents have gotten on the UFO subject. In fact, the name of the channel is Grant Cameron White House because he talks about it so much.
Uh, by the way, that's just yet another synchronicity. I'm like synchronicity magnet. During this, I didn't want to say anything about it, but now you're forcing me to. So during this podcast, he sent me an email. Because he's sending me questions. Like he's like, before you interview Nolan, like watch this YouTube video or
Grant
something like that.
Cameron?
Yeah,
Oh, neat. Neat. I love Grant.
yeah, he's awesome. He's a good dude. He's like an awesome dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would like to have a beer with Grant someday.
so I never met him in person, but I definitely want to because he's just very direct, like I am. But anything you tell him though, he's going to share. Just understand that,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
But he's really interested in the consciousness aspects of it all and the consciousness
I think
connection.
he's right. I think
And I
he's
think he's
right.
right. I think he's right.
Yeah.
I think he's really on the money in a way that most people aren't.
Okay, this
Jack,
is the
there was
Q
a chat.
chat
Okay,
thing you're
yeah,
talking.
yeah. I don't follow Q. I don't. I'm not a Q person. Why is Lynn
Probably
Buchanan?
be probably because of his relationship with Ed Dames, right? So there's actually a remote viewing of Rendlesham Forest, like that incident that Lynn Buchanan did in 1986, and his monitor was Ed Dames. So they worked together, and I imagine that because Lynn knows Ed Dames and Ed Dames knows Courtney Brown, that by the associative property of whatever, Courtney Brown knows Lynn Buchanan, so Lynn Buchanan probably gets some money to be on a board.
Well, in defense of Farsight, I don't think Daz Smith and Dick Gallagher would have been associated with them in any way if there wasn't some merit to what they were doing. And I think Courtney Brown was
Yeah.
probably doing some good work for a long time, but I do think that he kind of went off the rails at some point.
Well, and to be clear, he had that one horrible moment, right? But that was years ago.
Well,
So
have you seen some of the Farsight's recent work?
I just
Courtney's
no.
okay, yeah. Well, yeah,
We'll chat afterwards.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't. How would disclosure go down? Announcement on TV. We have to. No, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see some sightings, like mass sightings, and people are going to be like, "It's a flare! It's a flare! It's a flare! Data, data, data!" And then you're going to see some more disturbing sightings where people actually see beings, and the harder that the government tries to deny it, which they will, because it's already clear which direction they're going, the worse it's going to get, and it's going to get to a point where if the current regime, folks in power, Democrat and Republican, if they don't work to being more transparent about this policy, they're all going to lose their seats in the next election because they're going to lose so much credibility. But I think what's going to happen, I think the phenomena is driving disclosure. I think there's some elements of government that are trying to um, are like have been caught flat-footed, and then I think there's some fractions of government that are just like, no, we're just going to deny, counter accuse, off the skate, like we always do. And I just think the more that they do that, the more that they're going to. I mean, right now, government credibility is at an all-time low, and I think it's only going to make things even less stable than they already are. So if they do the right thing, they'll do announcement. I mean, Steve Bassett said that it would go something like they would be public hearings of folks who've had, with like Bob Salas, people that they've already interviewed. And then 2 weeks later, the president gets on a teleprompter in the room. It was like a very specific room in the White House that he would go to. It's like a bigger than, I can't remember. I should know this, but and he would come out and say something to the effect of, I've been following these hearings with interest, and I think it's time to announce to the American people that we are not alone. Now, we're going to release what we can, but as you know, there's national security implications of some of this data, so we're going to do our best. And, we want to make very clear that in interactions that we've had stretching back to the 70 years, we have not seen or experienced hostile intent for the most part, and we don't expect it going forward. But over the next days and weeks, my staff will come together to give you a little bit more robust understanding of what's going on. But I don't think that, because once they start asking questions, they're going to be like, where are these things from? We don't know. Well, what are they? Are they from another planet? Are they from, we don't know. So there's going to be a lot of that. Whether or not we know, who knows, right? But I'm sure we know some stuff, and there's other stuff that we do not know. So.
Well, I don't know how much the president knows or has access to, but I think that there are elements that know a whole lot and that are working directly with the phenomenon. That's just my opinion, or that's what I think the evidence shows. Was that a NASA meeting?
I think it's about balloons.
Flares.
Yeah, flares.
A flare in a balloon.
Yeah, I gotta go off on flares right now because
let's go. Let's do the flares.
What? Just wait for the flares, or do it now.
Why not? We're 2 hours in. Why not go for it?
Okay, this is just very quickly because we still got to get to questions. So I think you've all seen this sighting on 29 Palms. It's in the Mojave Desert. There's this, aircraft, or I don't even know if it's an aircraft, but there's a series of lights that are relatively stable in the sky, don't really move. It's kind of slowly gliding forward. Looks like a triangular shaped something. Okay, so if kind of the usual suspects, the debunkers and things like that, had come out and said, you know what, they might be drones, or it might be an airship, like a U.S. airship, something like that.
Yeah, you've frozen.
Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't see anything.
I can hear you though. I think everybody can hear you. If you just go on talking, maybe your visual will catch up.
Okay. Yeah, it looks. I'm in like a really, really, really great spot too. I look awesome.
At least your mouth isn't opening with like spinach in your teeth or anything.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I'll do the setup, but the rant, I have to be.
Yeah, you got to be in motion to do the rant. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I saw you move. No. Man.
Well, we'll see. I wonder if it's still. Anyway,
they know.
I'll do the setup and then I'll do the rant later. But the usual suspects came out and tried to say they were flares. But you're talking about, close to 80 people, most of whom are Marines, right? And they're, infantry folks who routinely use flares, right? So,
They did
you
that
know,
very night. They shot up flares to see the object.
yeah, exactly. So, anyway, I'll get back to it. What the heck just happened?
I'll do a little dance, try to entertain people.
Me?
Doing the
All
disclosure
right, you can still
dance.
hear.
All
Here,
right.
let me and then add back.
Yeah, I don't. You don't need to zoom in on my dance.
Oh, great! I'm black. I just it's all black. I wonder. Hold on, I might have a hypothesis.
Yeah, the joys of live
No,
streaming, folks. Hang in there. Bear with us.
I think.
Okay, George is saying we can both we can see you both visually and hear you as well. That's interesting. Can anybody else see Sean? Let us know in the comments if anybody can see Sean. Because
Okay.
I can see you now.
All right. I just had to I don't know, and then everything is now I'm all messed up. Does that look good?
Looks good.
All right.
Looks good.
All right. So, all right, I gotta do the rant really quick before the deep state shuts me down. I'm just joking because they don't really care about me. But, okay.
You don't know, man. You don't know.
So here's the thing that drives me nuts. I spent 5 years in the freaking Mojave Desert. Okay, I was an Army officer. I bet you if I asked Nick West, I guarantee he has never, or whoever comes up with this thing. I can't say who. I'm not going to really say this. I guarantee they've never used a flare in their entire life, because what it looks like is it's like a tube. You hit the tube on some metallic object, and it shoots up. You can see a stream of smoke. It kind of pops at the top, and then the sky lights up, and the little parachute kind of slowly dangles down, right? Now, there are other sorts of flares, but you would see a smoke trail. And by the way, the slowest they descend is like 4 feet per second. Okay? That thing, so the height it would have to be loitering for 10 minutes without hitting the ground. It is insulting that they came up with this.
And supposedly they were watching it for like 30 minutes.
Well, one person said like 10 minutes, but then there's a subsequent interview. They said like 30 to 35 minutes. So who knows? Who knows what? If that's the length of time, there's no way it's a flare. But just pick something plausible, right? It's fine to admit, you know what, it's probably not a flare. But if everybody who is like a ground pounder who spent time in the military around flares and like it is not a flare. There's no way that's a flare. So it's just like this like people are just discounting eyewitness testimony. It's really, really annoying. I guess I wasn't gonna go on that much of a rant. So
no, man, you are absolutely 100% right. Flares is just their latest go-to to debunk something. I mean, it used to be swamp gas or whatever. Now they've got flares or balloons.
I love that. I love this statement.
Yeah, maybe they're both debunkers. Is that the idea?
Yeah, if Neil deGrasse Tyson got a rectal probe, he would not admit it was a rectal probe. Okay.
Graham Hancock has some interesting thoughts on the history of mankind and how we came to be here. Your thoughts on that? Personally, I love Graham. Have you interviewed him yet? You should totally interview Graham.
I mean, he might. I perceive him to be so like anybody who's been on the Joe Rogan show is like, it's a little bit more difficult to.
But you've got some fairly big wigs. I've got to give you props.
But you got to stack them. You got to stack them. You got to like. It's like the hot girlfriend thing. It's just like I don't know if my girlfriend's hot unless my friends think she's hot, right? And like I don't think that way, but a lot of people think that way. So because when I first starting out, I had like 400 like subscribers, and I'm reaching out to people. If it wasn't for David Morehouse, I wouldn't have been able to get all those other great guests. And
That's
it's just
awesome.
because he's just like, oh, I'll talk to this guy. And then, he's on a bunch of shows and he'll continue to be on a bunch of shows. But you have to like stack and say like so when I reach out to him, I have like this person's been on and this person's been on and this person's been on, and it makes it more likely that they'll accept. So anyway, for those folks who try to interview people.
Well, I love Graham. I love his ideas. I watched his most recent show or series, Ancient Apocalypse. Great show. Do I think all of those places that he went to were part of Atlantis or the remnants of Atlantis? No, but I think that some of them probably were, or created by the survivors of Atlantis or what have you. Some offshoot or what have you. But in general, I think Graham is on point that there was an ancient civilization that got wiped out by an apocalypse, either of their own making or not of their own making, a catastrophe, the Younger Dryas catastrophe sort of thing. There are remote viewers and there are people that, Matthias Stefano?
Mm-mm.
Well, he's he's an amazing guy. I've been following him for a couple of years. He is somebody who has he says he has access to the Akashic records, and that he can see all his past lives, including those lived in Atlantis. And he has this great story about the fall of Atlantis and how it was really brought about by itself or its colonies that revolted against it using pyramids. Anyway, but according to that story and other stories that have Atlantis falling by more human means,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the story, that Graham proposes, or not story, but he, the Younger Dryas event was a real event. Whether or not that was the end of Atlantis or not, I don't know, but the dates definitely do coincide. So, whichever happened, whether it was human or non-human, or the fall of the previous great civilization, I think that some element of that is probably still here with us. Some people think that's responsible for the UFOs and the hieroglyphic scene on the UFOs.
Oh, I think I know what he's talking about. The ex UFO whistleblower on 4chan. Yeah, somebody sent me that. That's a whole other rabbit hole, man. Like it's nuts. I mean, there's no way to verify. It's a great story. It's a great yarn. I'll tell you that.
Well, that's why I avoid 4chan, because there's no way to verify it.
Yeah, is this the Bermuda Triangle one where they like attack anything that comes into the Bermuda Triangle? I'm guessing, but I saw like it was like page after page after page after page after page. Um. Oh.
Okay, all right. Let's. Operation Trojan Horse has a whole chapter on the lady from 1970, and the implication was that the lady delivers every time with her predictions, unlike many of the other entities. Wow, Christian. Okay, Operation Trojan Horse. Remind me who wrote that. Was that one of the remote viewers? Was that who wrote that? I'm gonna have to Google that. Operation. That wasn't John Keel, was it? Operation.
While you're doing that, there's a story that Ryan Bledsoe. He has a show called
Yeah,
Bledsoe
John
Said
Keel.
So.
John Keel.
So Ryan Bledsoe, he has a show called Bledsoe Said So, which is actually pretty fascinating because he tells a little bit more of the stuff that he's not supposed to be saying.
That's why I love Ryan. He just lets it all go.
Yeah. So what did he say? He said that there's folks. Again, I don't. This is all like third hand. So take it. It's a great yarn, regardless. But there's a story that Kit Green. You know who Kit Green is? Yeah, he's like he ran the weird desk at CIA, but apparently like he helped Led Zeppelin write the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven in order to prepare humanity for the lady. Read the lyrics. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's happened, but it's definitely,
Hey,
what is it?
man,
There's a lady in white.
Grant Cameron talks all the time about songs being channeled from beyond, and not just songs, but other
Tim
things as
Taylor,
well.
that whole like he gets these ideas for biotech.
Right. People get this channeled information that they are meant to deliver to humanity, and Chris Bledsoe got his songs from the lady. So it would be fascinating if there were a song to prepare people for the lady that then gave us 6 songs. And I don't even know if we know all of them yet. I think we only 3 have been released, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. If we know all
So
6.
Mick West is I would agree that he's smarter than 50 active Marines. However, he has far less experience with flares. Oops. All right,
Well,
you
I
can still
mean,
hear me. I know what happened. You can still hear me, right?
yeah, I can still hear you.
All right. I'm just going to change out my camera. So, just keep talking.
When I first saw that question, I thought it was a joke. How many Mick West can screw in a light bulb or something?
All right.
But yeah, Mick West is a smart guy, but you know what? So is Neil deGrasse Tyson. It doesn't make their stance on UFOs any more legitimate. If you're going to bury your head in the sand and not look at reality, then it doesn't matter how smart you are or how dumb you are. Like Forrest Gump said, stupid is as stupid does. If the stupidest person were willing to face reality head on, that's all it takes. It doesn't matter how smart you are if you're lying to yourself and others.
Every time that camera, like if I have a much fancier camera, but it's supposed to be getting power, but no matter what, after like 2.5 hours, it just dies every time.
Yeah, lame. Thanks, camera.
Yeah. Oh well.
It's
all right. So
now.
Yeah, it's just you start. I see high.
Yeah.
All right. Exactly.
That
0
explains
point
it.
energy flares.
I think we cracked the code.
Yeah. That's the thing. People don't know anything about flares. Like they don't know. Like they never use them. They have no experience, so they can't.
They tried to debunk, the Phoenix Lights as flares. I mean, I think there was a military exercise with some flares, but this was a massive crash seen by thousands of people.
Well, and here's the thing: I'm not saying it's like an alien craft. I'm not saying it's a black project. I'm just saying it's not flares. So when I say it's not flares, the burden of proof is on you. It's not on me, right? And that's what they don't seem to like. They're not used to having it flipped, right?
Do I have any plans to regularly do interviews with UFO personalities? I would love to start doing interviews. I think that'd be fun. I like to hear myself talk. I don't know if I could be quiet long enough to hear anybody else talk. Sean,
come on, you're great.
Sean is such a great interviewer. I don't want to steal his thunder. And I don't think I could do that, but I am really intrigued, and I've got questions I would like to ask. So at some point, I would like to start doing interviews. I don't know where to begin on that.
Well, Jack is more entertaining and charismatic than me. This is why he can get away with just talking, and I have to bring other people on.
I don't know about that. If there was helicopters after the UFO, will we see this on a FOIA? Or is that a silly question? Because of course not. Now, was it the Marines? I'd love to know if the trucks and helicopters had number. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the military response to the flares, where there were like 50 trucks going after it and a bunch of helicopters, which is what, I don't know if you watched the recent episode of Weaponized, but Jeremy Corbell had several Marines that were witnesses, and they came on the show and gave their testimony. And one of them said there was a massive military response to this object. There was not any part of the training exercise or anything that it looked like they were going after this object.
Hey, Jack, we have an important announcement from our sponsor, not from State Farm. Jake, welcome. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, so I really want some follow up on that because none of the other witnesses talked about the massive military response to the 29 Palms UFO. And I would love to know what some of the other witnesses may have seen. I don't like getting my information from just one source. If there's a bunch of witnesses talking about this, I want to hear what else they had to say. And if there were black helicopters and trucks going after this object, what did they mean to get? It didn't seem to crash, so it wasn't a crash retrieval. There are so many times where black helicopters have shown up around abductees or contactees. And, I think Terry Lovelace also had black helicopters that would buzz his house. And that seems to be a common feature as in cattle abductions or cattle mutilations as well. So, there's some event that happens from the phenomenon and the black helicopters show up. So, anyway, I don't know if that's what you meant with the black helicopters, but I think the black helicopters are fascinating. And we had one at the Skinwalker Ranch just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, on the episode of Skinwalker Ranch, obviously it happened last summer. But just immediately after the phenomenon blew a rocket out of the sky, well, I say sky, but it happened at 30 feet. They launched the rocket and then this amorphous blob appeared on their screens and blew it up. Immediately, black helicopter shows up.
That Midwest thing was a joke. That was not his finest hour. And I would not double down. I would just say, yeah, it might be flares, it might be something else. Right? That was not his finest hour. No, I think the abductions thing. So Whitney Strieber's latest book, Them, goes into this. Like, I think the abductions thing is they're going to avoid talking about that for as long as possible, preferably after everybody who's been abducted dies of natural causes, right?
Well, I mean, just think about it. How could they say that? How could they say, yeah, there are forces beyond our control that abduct people from their homes at night, and we can't keep you safe from it?
And then, and not only were you abducted and possibly harmed, but you were also shamed and ridiculed and threatened, and sometimes we disappeared you, right? So, I mean, I don't know if that's the case. I'm just speculating.
Right. Yeah. So I think that the how I see disclosure happening is they will, first of all, they'll talk about UFO crash retrievals, and they might even show us some hardware, maybe. And so that will do a lot of things because it will demonstrate there is a phenomenon, but it will also, there won't be any bodies. They won't reveal any bodies or talk about any occupants. So, or any interactions with the beings, but there's some ships, right? So, hey, and so it'll give people the option of thinking people faked the ships, right? So if they want to have the cognitive dissonance, if that's what they need to preserve their sanity, they can. But for those who are waking up to understand, hey, there's some ships here. They're not ours. We're going to open this up to the public, or at least some scientists or something that are the public would accept. And and then they will build on that. A year later they'll say, "Oh, look, we lost some paperwork. Actually, somebody forgot to sign the right thing, and look, we actually had some bodies." In a container somewhere. It was 50 years ago. Nobody alive could be culpable or responsible for lying. They're just lost somewhere. They've been sitting in a storeroom for 50 years.
So that is a perfect segue for the Simple Sabotage Manual. Are you familiar with this thing?
Nope. Lead me through it.
Okay, let me just go directly to the page. So this is from the OSS in World War II. Okay, and if for folks who don't know, OSS was the precursor to the CIA. Okay, so this is if you're kind of behind enemy lines and you're working for, whoever the enemy is. Okay, and you need to sabotage them. All right. So there's a bunch of things like, sabotaging railroad tracks and, stuff like that. Like that's not important. Okay. But there's a whole section on how to sabotage organizations, or basically to make them inefficient. So anyone who's worked for a Fortune 500 company or been in a corporate meeting at some time in their life will recognize many of these things I'm about to read. But the reason I'm showing them is it's very similar to what you're seeing with the NASA. We need to see data. We have to calibrate. We need 4K on our satellites. It's going to take time to put the 4K on the satellites. We need more funding for the satellites, right? So so just to kind of take some quick examples, right? So organizations and conferences insist on doing everything through channels. Never permit shortcuts to be taken in order to expedite decisions. Make speeches. Talk as frequently as possible and at great length. Illustrate your points by long anecdotes and accounts of personal experiences. Never hesitate to make a few appropriate patriotic comments. Right? So who did that? Well, we had Scott Kelly do that, right? His little personal anecdote about the Bart Simpson thing, right? Never take shortcuts. Always go through channels. Data. We must have data. We must calibrate. We must da. All right. Point number 3: when people refer all matters to committee for further study and consideration, attempt to make committees as large as possible. Never less than 5. How many people, Jack, were on that committee?
There are a lot of people. Like,
okay.
20 or
Bring
something?
up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible. This object is moving at 13,000 feet. It's moving at 40 knots. Okay. So irrelevant. Haggle over precise wording of communication minutes resolutions, right? Let's start your unidentified aerial objects or, phenomena. Now let's change it to unidentified anomalous phenomena. Okay. Refer back to matters decided upon at the last meeting and attempt to reopen the question and the advisability of that decision. Advocate caution. Be reasonable and urge your fellow conferees to be reasonable and avoid haste, which might result in embarrassment or difficulties later on. Remember that guy who was talking about identifying life and making sure that we verify it and dot every I, cross every T, etc.? Be worried about propriety of any decision. Raise the question of whether such action as is contemplated lies with the jurisdiction of the group, whether it might conflict with the policy of some higher echelon. Okay? Managers and supervisors demand written orders, misunderstand orders, ask endless questions, or engage in long correspondence about such orders. Quibble over them when you can. Do everything possible to delay the delivery of orders. Even though parts of an order may be ready beforehand, don't deliver it until it's completely ready. Okay, so this is a lot of like ordering materials. I'm going to skip over some of this. Okay, in making work assignments, always sign out the unimportant, or always assign the unimportant jobs first. See that the important jobs are assigned to inefficient workers or poor machines. Or of poor machines. Insist on perfect work in relatively unimportant products. We need the data, calibrate, pictures. Send back for refinishing those which have the least flaw. Approve other defective parts whose flaws are not visible to the naked eye. All right, let's see if there's anything else. To lower morale and with it product production, be pleasant to inefficient workers. Give them undeserved promotions. Discriminate against efficient workers. Complain unjustly about their work. Hold conferences when there is more critical work to be done. Multiply the paperwork in plausible ways. Start duplicate files. Multiply the procedures and clearances involved in issuing instructions, paychecks, and so on. See that 3 people have to approve everything where one would do. All right. So I'm not going to... Let me see if there's anything else. Okay. Just close this. Does
Yeah,
any
no,
of that
man,
sound
that
familiar?
is right on the money, man. That is right on the money. That is exactly what is going down.
So let's see.
So somebody has been reading that manual.
Well, I mean, I don't even think they're reading it. It's just like that's the basis upon which every the CIA and the intelligence community was constructed. So that stuff shared and obviously inherited, right?
Right.
Yeah, nobody laughed because it wasn't funny, right? You're talking about um, you know, de what's the word for it? Destigmatizing people who will report like that stigmatized people. Like, you know?
Yeah. We were just talking about the Bart Simpson response. Oh, you
Um,
mean the response that generated laughter? Yeah. Well, at the hearing with Sean Kirkpatrick, at the with the Senator Ernst and Gillibrand, Kirkpatrick actually cracked a couple of jokes. Yeah, I mean, I'm not jokes. He says he was trying to turn UAP into SEP, someone else's problem. And he said that joke 2 or 3 times. And he actually got Senator Ernst to laugh. She actually chuckled at that horrible, horrible joke and that horrible attitude. The whole goal of Arrow, I mean, the whole purpose of Arrow, this fabulous dream of, people that are interested and invested in the UFO topic, of actually getting Congress to create an agency to look into the UFOs. And he's saying it shouldn't, it should be someone else's problem. It's ridiculous. I mean, what's the point of Arrow, Sean? Anyway, but he got a laugh off of that. So that reminded me of the Bart Simpson thing.
I don't know what Elizondo would think. I think you're more tapped into Elizondo than I am.
Yeah. I've got a video coming out about that tomorrow. He had some tweets about it, and so I have a video coming up tomorrow morning about the responses from Lou Elizondo, Jeremy Corbell, Sean Cahill, and Chris Mellon. And they're basically all on the same page, trying to look at it in a more optimistic light, saying, hey, at least there was NASA's publicly involved in UFOs now. And they have they're holding a hearing on it or whatever. Hearing maybe the wrong word, but a meeting on it. So Lou's comments were a little spicier than that. He was like, this is the last dying throes of the old regime or something like that. So the last death throes of the old regime, something to that effect. And so he did go on and soften his tone in a later tweet, and he was, basically it's a good thing that NASA's talking about UFOs. And Sean Cahill was saying he quoted Aretha Franklin and said we should all listen to the Aretha Franklin song or take some wisdom from the Aretha Franklin song, accentuate the positive. So, I don't take that rosy view. I don't care if NASA is holding a hearing or meeting on UFOs and potentially elevating the public consciousness on UFOs. I mean, I think that would be valid if they weren't lying through their teeth and gaslighting us.
Well, to be fair, the people on that committee might have no clue about the phenomena. I doubt that the Dave Spergel guy, Dr. Spergel, didn't know. Right.
Was he the go fast guy?
No, he was the Ming the Merciless guy.
Okay. Who was the go fast guy? Who was the one that debunked the go fast?
I just call him Lurch, but I don't know what his name
Lurch.
is.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, he's basically Lurch, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
you got Ming the Merciless, you got Lurch, you got,
Well, I am 100% sure that they brought him in because he's from a university. He's not a NASA guy. They brought him in specifically because he wanted to debunk the go fast, and so I think they do have an agenda, and it is not a pro disclosure agenda.
Right.
So they may be on the level. They may be honestly thinking that it's all a bunch of BS. Well, they may be a bunch of Neil deGrasse Tysons. So I think that's totally possible. Yeah, if you're honest, you get fired. Yeah, transparency was secondary. His main goal, Lou's main goal, was to make one program a legal one to look at this, consolidate SAPs.
Yeah, they do some. There's some weird stuff they do in those special access program, and I'm not just talking about like UFOs and things like that. Like you saw that interview I did with Morehouse, right, where he almost single handedly destroyed the cocaine crop by removing its psychoactive component.
I forgot that part. Remind me.
Yeah. So, well,
I
they
know
didn't
I
get
saw
that.
that, but my memory is transitory.
They didn't get that far, but he was running a black project, and the goal was to stop the drug war by getting the cartels to kill each other. And the way that they did that, there was a guy who the head of the Medellin cartel was chainsawed to death by Pablo Escobar because that program convinced him that the Medellin cartel was sabotaging his cocaine supply by spraying it and stuff like that. Because we were spraying it, but we were spraying it with nothing, with BS, and then inserting, cocaine that had chemically been, I guess, bleached, where the psychoactive component was removed. And then people started killing it. Like, it not only ripped apart the caused an inner cartel conflict, it also caused intra cartel conflict as it went down the supply chain. So I think in about 6 months, he almost stopped single handedly with this program, the drug. And he also had at Sandia National Labs, I think they were working on a fungus or some bacteria that would remove the psychoactive component of cocaine. So if they had gotten to the completion of that, you'd have cocaine that doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Wow.
But I don't think they got that far. It was also part of a deception. The whole thing was a deception campaign. And but the government, like, when people started getting burned out of that system, the government kind of just said, okay, stop. So they canceled it.
Yeah,
but that kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff they do.
That is exactly the sort of stuff they do. That really is. It's scary and alarming. Some of it's encouraging. They're coming up with inventive ways to solve problems, but they did cause a guy to get chainsawed to death. So I don't know. He was probably a bad dude, though.
Oh, what's this?
It's all downs in February. The shoot downs in February. The White House has made something to look at. Yes, that's right. Yeah, and okay. So the White House supposedly created an inter-office agency or program to look at UFOs around the time of Balloon Gate, and we have not heard a peep from them since then. So, is that because they didn't think Arrow was sufficient, or Arrow wasn't an honest actor in this whole situation, since its whole purpose is not to exist, according to Sean Cahill? Excuse me, Sean Cahill. All you Seans.
Kirkpatrick,
yeah, Sean. There's too many Seans.
Well, Sean Kirkpatrick's the wrong kind of Irish. I'm the right kind of Irish.
That's right.
Isn't Kirkpatrick like a Northern Irish name?
Sounds likely.
I'm saying that in jest because Ryan Macbeth says he's got a story about that, because his father, I think, is Northern Irish, and he had a platoon sergeant or something like that who would just he would collect people with Irish surnames into his platoon, and he found out that he was Northern Irish, and he's just like, "You're the wrong kind of Irish, Macbeth." Anyway,
I've got a little Irish in me, but I don't know if I'm Northern or Southern.
Well, your name's Connor, so I figured you were. Okay, so psychotrop. I mean, probably. I don't want to. We probably shouldn't discuss. We do not advocate use of illicit narcotics.
Or do we?
But yeah,
I've had some intriguing experiences.
Well, John, everybody says that, but I don't think. I don't think they're. I don't think that. I think we're too much of. We're small fries. We're not. Why would the powers that be messing with us?
You've interviewed some intriguing people that could have people watching them. I mean, we know Chris Bledsoe is being watched. Surely, are they monitoring?
Yeah, that's weird. When I reached out, I got a response in less than 20 minutes.
Wow.
And the guy, cool, his manager is if you look at the UFO of God website, his manager has a testimonial. Like Jim Semivan has a testimonial. Colonel Alexander has a testimonial, and this guy has a testimonial. And by his name, it just says analyst USG, whatever. So read into that. I mean, he could be working for the Department of Agriculture. I don't know. Right? Probably not.
Yeah, but I mean, so you could have attracted the attention of people through your associations with these guys.
Look, I think they already know about me from the distant past. I mean, I'll tell you just not in a bad way, but in a positive way. So when I did my master's thesis on the Iran's nuclear program, it was circulated. It was just open source and stuff like that. But it was how to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons. So I've a friend who was, military intelligence guy. He's no longer in. But he said he asked a bunch of 3-letter agencies for a good strategy on the Iran problem. And he said they all sent him my master's thesis. But that's 20 years. I mean, that's 17 years ago.
Wow, man, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So they, and I had I had a TS clearance. I never used it, but I had one.
Wow. Wow. So you got on some people's radar. That's an amazing story.
Maybe or not. But my thesis advisor is, right? I don't want to it's fine if people know, but I sound like a prick. So just type on your own, Jack, just type in my name, Iran, well, just do that. And there will be my master's thesis will show up. Just look at the names on the cover. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Or you can look at my bio. It's there. It's not like a mystery.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I will do that.
My thesis advisor died last year, but just from, I think, cardiac issues.
But who's going to volunteer?
Yeah, I think the phenomena is just it's gonna get so ridiculous that there's, again, I don't know specifics, but like Bledsoe is like, just watch the interview I did with Bledsoe. He is just like, he's certain. He's like, we are coming out whether the government likes it or not.
I like it, man. I like it. Bring it. I think that we'll get disclosure when the phenomenon wants disclosure. And I think there are elements of the phenomenon that do want disclosure. And
so Whitley Strieber actually has a pretty balanced description about, like, he doesn't blame government. He suggests that the phenomena basically set government up so that they had to keep it secret. Right. And they just forced them in a position so that the phenomena could do whatever it wanted. Right.
Okay. Could be. And I think there's a
problem. Oh no, they were definitely. Well, I know two for sure were Chinese balloons, and I think the third object was.
Well, do we know? Because we know the first one was a balloon for 100%, but then there were the 3 other objects, and I don't think we have any information on that. But correct me if I'm wrong.
I asked somebody I know informally, and he's just like, "There's nothing."
Okay, well then how come they
no news, like what they were, but it's just like there's nothing crazy there.
Okay. There's
a crazier story about how those things got, but I don't know that story either, but that's where I got pressure. Like, what would happen? Like, I'm
Okay, well, how come they haven't released any of the pilots' the cams, the jet cams, or any of the videos of the takedowns? If it was just a mundane object.
So I'll play devil's advocate. So if the Chinese were to view it, they would see whatever the missile targeted, how we shot it down, and then they might do something to the next package where
make it harder, more
survivable. Yeah, or make it so that the intelligence package survives so they can transmit it back. I don't know. I'm kind of, but I would imagine it's a sources and kind of methods argument, and it's probably a legitimate one.
Okay.
But there is a video of one of an
F-35. The first one, absolutely 100%. Yeah, I just don't know about the following ones.
Yeah, I mean, look, the other two could be. I don't know. I didn't get a sense of alarm or anything like that. That
It's just so unlikely that we can shoot down a UFO, and yet there are multiple cases of like legit seeming cases where that seems to have happened.
Yeah, or let's say there are 3 Chinese balloons and we couldn't find the other 2. We don't want to.
Right.
We don't want to announce
Well,
to the world.
I don't know about the balloon gate. I don't know about that. But I just mean like historically, like even Colonel Corso in the book The Day After Roswell talked about us shooting down a UFO with an energy weapon that we developed from reverse engineering technology from a UFO. And there's been multiple other fairly credible accounts of us shooting down UFOs, which seems so unlikely that we could shoot one of these things down.
Well,
but it seems like it
I can think of a scenario where that happened. Let's say, I mean, we live in a universe where there's trillions of stars, right, and multiple trillions of who knows, right? But there could still be varying levels of technological development, and maybe you have a less technologically developed species that shows up, and we shoot it down, right? Probably not for something that can get that far. It's unlikely that they would be less developed, but I don't know.
No, I mean, it totally could be. Maybe they had an off day. Maybe they had a fuse blown on their fuel generator, and we were able to shoot them down. Who knows? Who knows? Stuff
this
happens.
One's an easy one. How do you maintain your morale with the ups and downs regarding the process of disclosure? Which motivates you to continue to pursue truth, and do you feel you're close to realizing it in your lifetime? So my default position is the government. If you are waiting for the government to reveal this to you, you're never gonna learn the truth. The only way you're gonna learn the truth is if you do enough research that eventually the phenomena reveals itself to you. Full stop. And I would encourage, in fact, I think that's what we all need to do, is just try to have like a clearinghouse outside of government. And I think that's what To the Stars Academy is to some extent, but where we just get the data and just come to our own conclusions. And even if you kind of convince yourself that they exist, nobody's going to believe you. And so you have to assume nobody's going to believe you. So you just say, look, this happened to me. Here are the details. And if you don't believe me, go F yourself. I don't care. Right? Now, I don't have any experiences where I can really, the stuff that happens to me is more weird synchronicities, right? Like owls flying over the night before I talked to Blutzo and stuff like that. But it's like more stuff that you could easily say, oh, it's just pure coincidence. You're just reading into it. I very well might be, but yeah, I mean, that's and plus it's interesting. What I'm worried about though, is if the government kind of, given the ham-fisted way that they dealt with it, if they do disclose, I'm already thinking through, have they thought through the day after disclosure? Have they prepared for this? Right? Have they done studies? I'm sure they have. I'm sure the Rand Corporation's done 100 different studies on that.
Well,
but
go
ahead.
Yeah, according to Bob Bigelow, who talked about this with James Fox, and the story is coming from James Fox. Bob Bigelow says they did do studies on it, and it terrified them, and that's why they would never disclose. So who knows? But there does seem to be a disclosure movement happening, whether the government wants it or not.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, all you can do is, when Blutzo reports, when he starts putting that stuff out, just magnify the signal. You don't have to, I mean, you don't have to, and don't, I think the most important thing is to keep your mind open. So whenever you share this stuff, don't assert that it's definitely this, right? I think it's okay to say it's definitely not flares, right? If the argument's so stupid that, it's potentially ridiculous, but it's hard. It's easier to say it's not something than it is to say it is something. But just keep your mind open, and also be careful, because there's an overwhelming argument that whatever this stuff is, it's benign, and you can't assume that either. So the best thing that folks have said, like the Grant Camerons of the world and things like that, is make sure your intent is positive and have the highest intentions, because you go there with, and again, I'm not a new agey type person, but you go in there with the highest vibration. You go in there with low vibrations, you might you might get the mirror of kind of your fears and things like that. So like Semivan did not have a good experience, right? But that experience may have been necessary for him to do what he's doing today.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You have to go into it with your eyes open, because there are negative experiences that people have. But but yeah, like Grant Cameron was saying, go into it with a good intent. High vibrations, very important. Very important.
What's this leak from Lake Huron?
Was that a recent leak? Was that during when it was going on?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any information coming out about that shoot down. But if you have any, let us know. Um, I'd love to know more about those cases, even if it's just all mundane objects. And I think that's very likely they were. But
Yeah, I think that's probably. I mean, if they're electrogravitic technology, EM pulse will probably definitely take them down.
well, Lou Elizondo said that, right?
Yeah.
He said it hypothetically, but he says yes, if there were an object that had these capabilities, and if it was shot with the electromagnetic pulse or whatever that disabled its ability to generate this field, then it would collapse like a stone. Hypothetically,
Like a brick, right? Like a brick,
right,
right?
right. So
Yeah, you gotta be. Yeah, I'm not sure how to feel. But I feel about DeLong. Because I think he showed up.
I love Tom. He says some crazy stuff. Who knows? I do think that his trend lately has been more influenced by Jim Semivan, and he views the phenomenon in a more negative light than maybe he did before. And I think that's unfortunate.
Well, to be fair, like you have to be cautious. You have to be careful. Like you can't.
And there are absolutely negative experiences that people have had, and there is a negative side to this. So no, absolutely. Would it be okay to ask your spiritual backgrounds and how you reconcile this belief with knowledge of intelligent extraterrestrial interdimensional life? Well, you want to take this one first?
Yeah. So I grew up Roman Catholic. So believe it or not, the Roman Catholic Church has a lot of these. Like if you read American Cosmic by Diana, what D.W. Pasulka, whatever her name is, but the Vatican has a lot of this stuff.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like they have a lot of artifacts.
yeah.
Now I don't know if it's alien or angel hair or whatever you want to call it, whatever. But they have a lot of maybe if not materials, they certainly have a lot of ancient texts and multiple copies of like the Enochian text and things of the Bible that were not or that were taken out. And I actually think the Catholic Church has a pretty enlightened attitude toward. I think the Catholic Church is probably one of the more prepared for this kind of stuff to
well, the Pope came out in the early 2000s when he's saying, if ET was discovered, it wouldn't be inconsistent with Catholic beliefs.
Well, here's the creepy thing. Why would the phenomena care if he got assassinated? Right? Like the message said, we need him. We need him.
Right.
I asked Bledsoe why. And he's just like, I don't know. I don't know.
Keep your eyes on the Pope, guys.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes on the Pope.
Oh, you didn't get it. But I wouldn't say I'm practicing. I'm willing to believe that I am also scientifically minded, but I don't, like NASA, think that we've solved everything, and I'm not 100% a materialist. I think there's an aspect of reality. We have a very narrow range of what we can see, hear, and we can only hear things in the sound spectrum from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, and then anything below 20 hertz, you start to get into the infrasound range, and while you don't hear it, it can make you hallucinate. It can do all sorts of crazy stuff. So there's aspects of reality. We're only seeing a very narrow range of reality, and there's things that we just don't see. You don't see electromagnetic waves. You don't see radioactive, radiation. You don't see gravity, right? But you experience its effects. So, but I don't know. Who knows? Like maybe the things like demons, right? There's a whole book on that called by Nick Redfern called Final Events. and it's creepy. It's super creepy. And there's a faction inside government that, at least in that book, is called the Collins Elite. But I even asked Bledsoe about that. I'm like, did you deal with some of these people who think the phenomenon is demonic? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. They showed up too. So anyway, Jack, sorry, I didn't
Well,
mean to
yeah,
monopolize.
no, just about the whole spirituality question and how it affects my beliefs. I come to this as an atheist, or I was an atheist in 2017. And when 2017 happened and my research into the UFOs began, I quickly saw that there was this weird metaphysical paranormal aspect to it. 1/3 of all alien abductees are near death experiencers, people who have died, been to the other side, and come back. And so my research led me again and again to the metaphysical. And I was an atheist, and I would come across these paranormal stuff. And I was like, paranormal, come on. And, I would study Skinwalker Ranch, and they're talking about poltergeist and werewolves. And so I'm like, okay, I give up. All right, I'm going to study the paranormal. So I studied the paranormal. I did enough research. I did a huge deep dive into UFOs. I did a deep dive into paranormal, and I co-founded a ghost hunting group. I began ghost hunting, and then I began interacting with the paranormal. Now, at the time, I'm an atheist. So I'm thinking what I'm interacting with, what people are seeing, is some sort of artifact of alien technology. But my experiences and research quickly convinced me that that was not the case, that there were actually individual souls and personalities, et cetera, that people were seeing and interacting with. And so I was really blown away by this. One of my ghost hunting buddies did Reiki. She did Reiki on me, the healing modality, hands-on healing, if you know what Reiki is. I felt the energy. The chi. I felt it. The force. I felt the force flowing through me, and it was amazing. And so then I began learning Reiki. And during all of this, during all of my research and those experiences with ghost hunting and stuff like that, I began to have events happen for me. And I've had some fairly amazing big events. I'm not going to go into that here, but some really cool stuff that happened for me, and that I take no credit for other than being there and being open to it and pursuing that path of learning more. And then came my ayahuasca Jesus UFO thing. We're not endorsing drugs.
And we're not saying this is in the United States.
That's right. I'm sure it was somewhere legal, probably. And yes. And so the UFO thing happened a month after, and it directly related to the ayahuasca. And so I've had all these weird stuff and really amazing stuff happen for me, including a healing of myself that happened for me that really changed my life. And so I came across evidence of the metaphysical and the spiritual. And so my interest into UFOs led me directly into spirituality, because that's where it goes, is this other dimensional metaphysical aspect. And I was fascinated when UFOs before I learned there was a metaphysical aspect, but now I'm just, wow. So it's this huge grand mystery out there, and I love it. So I think that if people look at it that way, like when fundamentalist Christians look at it and they think, oh, it's demonic. Well, they just need to adjust their filter a little bit and see that it's not, and that there is this whole wonderful thing going on.
We can't say it's 100% not. Right?
Okay. If there's angels out there, no, because I'm supporting what you're saying. So if there is a good side to the spiritual aspect of it, there's probably a negative aspect to the spiritual aspect as well. So, if you're going to label that as jinn or demons or whatever, I myself have interacted with a negative entity. It was unpleasant. So it's there. So yeah, I'm not saying that that's not there. There's a range. There's a range in all this stuff. There's good and bad. I could go into a whole thing about the good and the bad. But anyway, yeah, it exists.
I wonder if the Brookings Institute study, I wonder if it would have the same criteria, or not criteria, but the same results would apply today. I'm sure they'd find a different thing outside of religion that would explain societal breakdown. But you know,
Well, that could be what Bob Bigelow was saying to James Fox. I mean, that could be where some of that fear was coming from about the studies they had done about what would happen after disclosure. Yeah, there's a trickster element and there is a dark side, but there is also an enormous positive side. And
yeah.
since we seem to co-create a lot of these experiences, I think it's healthy and productive to think of the positive side and to go into it with a positive intent and with
And by
love.
the way, that's exactly what Bledsoe says. Like positive intent, put positive energy out in the universe, and who knows if it. Look, it's like Pascal's wager. Do I know it's going to work? No, right? But if I put that stuff out into the world and nothing happens, I lose nothing. But if I put that positive stuff out into the world and it actually works, then I gain everything. So might as well just be positive. And people treat you better if you treat them better. So,
That's right.
all right, let's see.
I
Yeah, but
love
don't get too worried about it. But yeah, and the trickster event, like the trickster element, might also be a necessary element of evolution or education, right?
Yeah, I mean the trickster thing is real. I mean that is a part of it. I don't know what it means, but it is there. Everything else. Well, okay, so you have to go into it with your eyes open, and
Yeah.
I'm not advocating going into it blindly um, or any of that. That's why I don't think that what Stephen Greer says is healthy when he says aliens have never done anything negative. I don't think
Right.
that's productive to go into it with your eyes closed. I think you have to know that there could be risk, but that is precisely why you have to go into it with love and light. If
Well,
that makes sense.
look. I've gone in love and light with human beings, and I've been tricked, right? So like, it's just like anything else. If what they're telling you, if they start telling you to start cutting yourself or something like that, then they're probably not your best interest, right? So kind of listen to the message and try to, again, I haven't really encountered any of this. The next question, though, this is a wild question, and
Oh,
I have
and
a lot.
I'm gonna let you go. And 3 hours in, I'm gonna bug out. So in a few minutes. So
All right, or we could take a break.
how late
I
did you want to go?
I'm surprised we're close to 3 hours. uh, I mean, yeah, we should put a we should put like a deadline. All right, why don't we go to like you see with the live to 10, well, 13 more minutes. So when it says 3:10 whatever, can you do that?
I could do that.
And we'll just have a hard stop. But you want to answer this one first?
Have either of you encountered entities visiting you in your dreams? Yes, I have. I have. Uh, Once I started getting into all of this, it's kind of personal. My dad came to me, and he's passed on, and this was not a dream. This was a visitation, and but it is kind of personal, and but yeah, I have encountered. I mean, I hate to call my dad an entity. That sounds, it's probably not the way I would want to phrase it. But yes, I have encountered someone visiting me in a dream that was not a dream. And so that is a thing. And I've had friends that have had the same experience. But are you talking about a human entity or a non-human entity?
I think it just means any.
Yeah, because I think that being, non-human entities have also visited people in dreams and higher beings. I think that's the thing too.
So dreams. Okay, so I can't say affirmatively one way or the other, but I can recount three experiences. One is a little bit more detailed, but the first two are just data points. So I have seen, and again, it could easily be my subconscious. So I've had the giant owl dream twice in the last I would say year twice. Once when I was kind of going to, visiting Lake Tahoe, I had the giant owl dream, and I was on my way to Tonopah, actually. At least that was my next destination. So Tonopah is where there's a Tonopah test range, and then that's where the stealth fighter was tested. Okay, but don't really recall much of that. I had another giant owl dream after I interviewed Mike Clellan, but you could easily say, well, you interviewed Mike Clellan, and he's like the owl guy, the owl UFO guy, right? So it might not mean anything. The one that I had that was really weird is I set an intention once that I want to have a positive interaction with a non-human entity with like positive intent and things like that. And then I proceeded to have a dream. This is weird, where Travis Taylor was like holding this giant blue snake, and he's like showing me how to manipulate the snake so that it didn't like bite you and poison and kill you with its venom. And then he's like, here you go. And then he gave it to me, and then he just walked away. So I just sat there as this snake was just kind of like crawling over, and I just didn't move. And then eventually it got bored and just went away. Now, was that a non-human entity? I don't know.
Huh.
But it was a weird dream.
That is interesting. That is interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never had another one other than that one dream. That was the only non-mundane dream that I can recall.
Huh. Oh, so they tried to hit an object and just kept going. Whew. Okay.
That's the link in the video I mentioned about objects shut down in Alaska. Okay. If not, I guess that's a rumor my brother got from 4chan.
Yeah, it's possible. I think there's a long.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good information that comes out of 4chan and a lot of BS, and I just tend to stay away from it because I don't know which is which.
Yeah, I guess the Tibetans are probably prepared for something like that too. Frank.
Hey, Frank.
It's all right. Don't worry. You only have 3 hours of crazy video. You can get to see me making fun of NASA and then reading from the Simple Sabotage Manual. Literally from the OSS's, the Office of Strategic Services.
Need more data.
Need more data. Haystack, needle.
Calibration. Must calibrate.
4K. Oh, you notice that too? They also, of all the like collection methods, one of the first method they covered was smartphone, and they're like, completely useless. Like, right? Like it's like a pre-bunking. Right.
Well, that's what they're going to do. I mean, are we on drugs right now? Not currently, no.
Although we should be drinking on this thing.
Oh, well, yeah. It was absolutely in a religious ceremony. I mean, I wouldn't do it out of ceremony. No, it's absolutely 100% part of a ceremony.
Well, I mean, I think my business school classmates would probably laugh at me, but the moment I start, because I can discuss there's actual cases with actual documentation. The moment you start rattling that stuff off, they're like, really? Really? So now when you start to get into more of you don't start with the woo stuff. Even with the people that I interviewed on my podcast, I started with people who were, actual Department of Defense remote viewers, right? Like it was an actual legitimate thing. And then I also try to stay with credible witnesses, and sometimes I'll take a risk, but because I have no way of verifying a lot of the experience or stories I get. But like Bledsoe as an example, right? If Bledsoe didn't have the military at his house, his story would be harder to believe, right? But he's predicted so many things that there's definitely, I mean, it's real. It is definitely real.
The man knows a goddess. He has a regular interaction with a goddess. I am just fascinated by the Chris Bledsoe story. Or, whatever she is, whatever the lady is.
I don't think it'll ever resemble Star Trek, by the way. I think that's too human-like. I think it's going to be weird. right?
Yep.
You're dealing with entities that evolved on a different, or who knows, either higher or more evolved, on Earth and just wiser, much more intelligent, or evolved in a completely different ecosystem. Will think differently. Will have weird, yeah. Go
Well, I
ahead.
mean, just imagine if what the beings consistently tell people is real and that humans have not realized their full potential. This came up again in the James Fox documentary, A Moment of Contact, about the Virginia, Brazil case, where when one of the beings was in the operating room and they were trying to save it, it said, "I feel sorry for you guys, you humans, because you don't know your full potential." And that's what they are trying to do in numerous abduction events is they teach people all these abilities, right? I mean, how to heal, see auras, all the woo-woo stuff. And so just imagine a future where humans have learned all that stuff. Can you imagine where we have rediscovered our woo, and we are all woo, but also sci-fi, and also interacting with higher dimensions that are now here?
Yeah. By the way, Jack, you and I should clarify too that we are also both occasionally, you more so than me, science fiction and fantasy authors.
Oh, yes. I
Let's
am. Go. Yeah.
so if the intelligence community decides to attack us, that's going to be their first. It's going to be like an L. Ron Hubbard attack, right? Like, oh, these guys are just like writing science fiction. They're
Right.
I'm
Right.
smoking ayahuasca. This guy, that's one guy's doing ayahuasca somewhere in a ceremony and blah blah blah. Right.
Right. Right.
All right, this one's for you, Jack.
Noticing your intro video, you incorporated a digital monolith, which was clever. What does the monolith signify? And is there evidence of its existing on other celestial bodies? I didn't include the monolith intentionally with any meaning. When I think of a monolith, I think of 2001, Space Odyssey. And that's where my mind goes, which is all about alien contact and at a very high level. I mean, my take on 2001 was aliens, that the monolith represents, inspiration and, potential and connection. But so if I did choose a monolith, that would be really clever of me. But I'm not that clever. I didn't do that. But
No, I bet you your subconscious did that. I mean, it's the same thing with my title. Have you looked at like where that came from? I just
no.
said this sounds really cool, right? But it's
I
it's
mean,
in
Alice
like
in Wonderland, right?
no, it's from Corinthians, right? There's something about like looking. There's something. The message is something about looking through reality through like when you look through reality, it's through a glass darkly,
Okay. Okay.
which is perfect, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not. I just thought it sounded cool.
That does sound cool. So you're looking at reality. I like
Through a
that.
glass darkly. That's
I
right.
like it. I thought it was all about Alice going through the mirror. In the sequel to Alice, because there's Alice in Wonderland, and then there's the sequel where she goes through the mirror,
through the looking glass.
through the looking. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought it was a reference to that, but yeah, it was through glass.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe.
well, because that would make
You know.
sense too, right? You're going through the glass into this other world, other reality.
Okay, all right, we have like 3 minutes or actually 2 minutes left. So we should ask the audience a question and just see answers on the way out. That way we don't have to answer it. We just curious. Disclosure or no disclosure? I wish I had like a poll, but I don't
Like
I don't
in
think
2023. Okay, I like that.
independent of government action. So just type disclosure or no disclosure in the chat.
Explain the background of the soldiers in gas mask. Okay, again,
So
that's you.
those it's so if you see like the AK-47, so it's obviously Eastern Bloc. This is Russian naval infantry, and again, I thought it, and then I have this castle behind it, and that is actually a place in like on Emerald. What is it? Emerald Lake. in on kind of, it's like a inlet. It's on Lake Tahoe, and it's a place called Viking's Home, and it was built in like the 1920s. But you go down this big hill, and it's just like this castle. It's pretty awesome. So it's just superimposed on that. Why I decided to put Russian naval infantry with gas masks? Because you're like, what is that?
It is
right.
cool.
Like what? Like
cool.
what's going on? Yeah, it's like, what's going on?
It's got the post-apocalypse versus the paranormal.
Yeah,
it's got
it was geopolitics meets kind of paranormal. That's what I was trying to. That's exactly what I was trying to
I like
get.
it.
So, all right, I don't think we're getting any votes, but I think
Come
it's
on,
okay.
guys, pony up with your votes.
I think it's a good time to call it, because I keep forgetting you're 2 hours ahead of me. So,
yeah, but that's okay. I've been having fun.
I've been having fun too, but you're the one suffering. So I'll stay on. I'll stay on for like forever. So but I'm not going to stay alone. So, I think people are. Oh,
If dead, disclosure occurs when the beings are in. Yes, absolutely, 100%, man. Absolutely. Now, I do think there's potential for just individuals like Chris Bledsoe to come out with it. But even he has been directed.
Oh, he's definitely. I mean, look, he hasn't said, but I feel like I think the Beyond Skinwalker has to be part of it in some way.
Yeah, no, I totally buy that, and I think.
But again, I want to be very clear to the audience. He did not tell me this. I just intuit. Like, if you go to his Instagram account, he has he shared something with Beyond Skinwalker, and then his son Ryan was talking about in November of 2022 saying yes or no to the History Channel, right? So, and I know somebody else who's on a subsequent episode. So I just analytics data.
I love it, man. Bring it. I can't wait. Beyond Skinwalker can't get here fast enough.
This is one of the reasons why we need disclosure very quickly, because did you hear about, I don't know, the article was written so badly that I couldn't tell if it was a simulation or if it was real. But did you see that there was like some AI automated drone that when it was called off its mission because it got more points for accomplishing its mission, the drone killed its human operator so they could complete the mission. I don't think but I couldn't tell if it actually killed its human operator or if it was just a simulation. I think it was just a simulation, but the article was not clear if you read it quickly.
That is terrifying. Well, I mean, Lou Elizondo said to read that book, and it talked about the interaction between AI and ET. And it didn't,
which one?
I forget the name of it. Kind of a funny name. If anybody in the chat remembers, it was the book that Lou Elizondo recommended that talked about interaction between AI and ET. And how he said it might be an important book to read. And I don't think it ended really well for humanity. But anyway, all right, I've got to go.
Yeah, I think it's time to call it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop you and I off, and I'm just going to play some music for a few minutes and, go to get some sleep, man. Hold on. Let me just, why is this? I'm losing it now too.
But guys, before we go, thank you very much for having me, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we should do this. We should do this a little bit more often.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I mean, this was a test. We'll see. We'll see how many subscribers we lose.
All of them. Well, it'll be 0 subscribers tomorrow.
No. All right. Let's see. What do I want to play? Here we go. All right. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.